ready to go?
Yep.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Good to see some familiar faces here again. This is the December 18th hearing of the Chester City Zoning Hearing Board. And as previously announced, this is a continued hearing from the November 20th, 2024 Zoning Hearing Board session. Where we left last time was with application numbers 4-24 and 5-24, both of the greenhouse project for the properties located at 42 and 44 East 23rd Street. I'm going to first confirm that the parties who were granted party status the last time are present. We'll go one by one here. Wallace. Hi, Ms. Wallace. Asbury. I think only you were granted party status for that one, so it's good to see you again. Shelton? I think they had to go to work. Okay. Wallace? I'm sorry, I switched lists. Brown Booker? And Womack? So we have Ms. Wallace and Ms. Asbury today. Okay. And just so it's on the record, the board will note that the parties who did participate in the first hearing are still remain parties to the application. They do not lose their party status by not being able to attend the second hearing. So where we left it last, and is anybody new who wasn't here at the last hearing today, who is interested in party status? Right, we'll note that there are no new requests for party status, and we'll just make the announcement that at the end of the first two hearings for applications 4 and applications 5, there will be an opportunity for public comment again for anybody who was not able to make public comment at the previous hearing and is not a party. That being said, where we left off the last time was the applicant had rested and completed their case on applications 4 and 5, and we were shifting to the parties to be able to give their testimony and any evidence that they may want to offer. So that would be Ms. Wallace and Ms. Asbury. So we'll go one by one, and it will be your opportunity to come up and provide your testimony. This is your thoughts, what your observations, any statements that you want to make. I will note that you will be subject to cross-examination by the applicant and any other party, just like we did the last time. Okay? This is still 4 and 5. Yes, this is where we left off the last time. All right. So we'll start there. Ms. Wallace, would you like to provide any testimony to the board on applications 4 and 5, which is 42 and 44 East 23rd Street? This is the residence and the house of worship. Please come up to the microphone, and we'll note you were sworn the last time, I believe.
Yes.
So you remain sworn for this hearing.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
And I'm going to be brief. Wallace, Angela. Wallace, W-A-L-L-A-C-E. And I'm going to be very brief because I'm aware of your time from the last time, and I appreciate it. Okay?
Yep.
So my whole thing is this. I purchased the property 4.5 years ago, coming from Philadelphia. I look for a residential area, not a commercial area and not a rehabilitation place. If I wanted that, I could have got a home a lot cheaper in Williamsport. So that's my chief complaint here today, is that I want to remain in a residential area. Now, if something went up like a church, there were churches everywhere. I didn't want to live down the street from a church. So that's why I'm here. Is that enough for today, Ms. Jackson?
If that's we're going to accept whatever you have to
I'm
say.
thinking that. Anybody want to cross-examine that?
And this is on the, just on the residence and the church applications, okay?
Is it anything else we're addressing today?
After we finish this first part of the process, we'll go
Yeah.
back and talk about the 24th Street properties, just
Because
so
I'm
you're
on
aware.
24th Street, right? But
Understood.
Yeah, my whole thing is, I bought a property, it was residential. There was no church. I would have rode by that property. I wouldn't have purchased that property. And that happened to me when I lived in Darby. I had bought my house and I was a homeowner, and the guy bought the property next to me, and then he promised me that I want another homeowner. I want somebody who's going to keep uplifting the community, such as myself. He assured me, no, Ange, no, I'm going to do this. And some kind of way behind my back, he didn't put a zoning notice because I would afford it. And all of a sudden, it's a duplex. And I got so depressed. And I suffer with depression. And things that might be trivial to somebody else is really big to me. So that duplex being next to me then, and it was nothing I could do about it because some kind of way, underhandedly, he got it done, and I'm forced to live next to a duplex. That's why I'm here today, because I don't want to be forced to live to something I didn't agree to initially. Thank you.
So just 1 second, Ms. Wallace. Counsel, do you have any questions for Ms. Wallace?
I don't think they do. I don't think they
Does,
do.
does the board have any questions for Ms. Wallace? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Ms. Asbury, would you like to offer some testimony on the 23rd Street properties?
I only have a couple of comments. I'm not really upset about the church.
So,
I'm sorry. My first name is Joni, Joni.
Thank you.
Asbury, Asbury. My main concern is some statements that were made. When they were made about why didn't you ask permission or go and get permits to have the church, it was stated that, oh, I didn't know I had to. A company as big as the Greenhouse Project, should be insulting to anyone because they have lawyers and representation. They know what you're supposed to do in a neighborhood. I don't like anything that I do what I want and then I ask for forgiveness later. That really tells me that you don't think enough of our neighborhood, and that's what we used to have, was a neighborhood. Now it's a church. There's many buildings, one right on my street, 24th, that is zoned as a commercial area. It's been vacant for over 5 years. That could have been a possibility, but it wasn't taken. Instead of that, our neighborhood is inundated with a church, rehab, halfway, sober living. And I just think it's an insult to Chester to do this to a community that was trying to keep their neighborhood updated. Thank you.
Thank you.
counsel, any questions for Ms. Asbury?
No.
Does the board? No. No. All right, thank you, Ms. Asbury.
I'm sorry, one thing real fast, I apologize. You said you live on 24th Street?
24th Street.
Okay.
All right. That concludes the parties that we have present for today. Mr. Canet, do you have anything to offer in rebuttal? I know you reserved last time. Is there anything you need to present based on that?
I do, because there were a couple of issues that were brought up at the end, I guess during the course of the last hearing. So if I could recall John Clifford.
Sure. Mr. Clifford, if you can just, because we do have a different court reporter this time, if you can just spell your name for her.
I gave my card to John, CLIFFORD.
Great. Go ahead, Mr. Canet.
Yes, sir.
Now, when we were here back in November, the question came up about parking for the church, and with parking going to occur on East 23rd Street. And have you had a chance to speak with any of the neighbors about the parking situation?
Yes, actually, after the last meeting, a few neighbors gave a suggestion that we should go down to the Meineke and ask for permission to be able to use their parking lot, and we did, and they gave us approval. Also across the street is Sharon Hill Medical, and they also gave us permission to use their parking lot for anybody on our staff or for volunteers.
Now, we had 3 exhibits in our original packet. We added exhibit 4 for this hearing. Are you familiar with the
have it in front of me.
Can you grab it?
Is this something you've provided today, or,
You should have it.
oh, is it this single? Okay.
It's an aerial photograph. You recognize what's been marked in this area?
Yes, it's the picture of 23rd, 24th, and the surrounding areas.
So the two properties that you just identified, the Meineke and
Correct.
and the Sharon Hill property,
Correct.
can you just, and if it's okay, if we maybe just approach this to Dennis a little bit so that he can point out where those are?
I think
You
we're
you can
familiar.
hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're familiar,
Okay.
yeah. Did you need us, was there a
I
question
just
about
wanted
whether,
to be sure you knew what we were talking about.
very aware, thank you.
I assume that Ms. Wallace and Ms. Asbury, you're aware of where the Meineke and the Sharon Hill Medical are? Okay, can we just identify for Ms. Wallace and Ms. Asbury where the Sharon Hill Medical is?
Yeah, I don't know what that's at either. You know what that's at?
That, wait, everybody can't talk at once. Parking is part of the issue, that's why we're talking about this, okay. Okay, thank you for offering that.
And I think there was additional discussion, pardon me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Kennett, do you have agreements in writing for this additional parking?
We do not,
Okay. These are verbal permissions that were granted?
yes.
Okay.
And there was additional question about the Tuesday night, Tuesday afternoon food bank and parking for that. And were you able to address that issue?
Yes, we've asked our volunteers not to park on site. We've put together a plan to how to manage traffic, to ask people to not double park, to park in other locations. And we've also laid a cones out for the truck, for when the food truck comes and drops off food. It's only dropping off food for about 10 minutes or so. But to actually make sure it's parked in a legitimate parking spot, facing the correct way in the street, and to make sure it doesn't impede traffic in any way possible.
And were you going to have the food truck park in a different area than on East 23rd Street?
On Crosby directly, facing the correct
And
direction.
that area is also, Crosby Street is also shown on what we marked to the floor.
Correct, yes.
Now, and I wanted to ask you, at the end of the block, opposite Crosby Street, is there a church at the end of the block?
There is.
And what's the name of that church?
Life Through Christ Community Fellowship.
And would you say that that's a fairly large church?
It is.
And does that property also have a residence,
It does.
so a parsonage or a rectory or something?
Correct.
Something to that effect? And that property, you're familiar with that?
Yes,
And is that property shown on Exhibit 4?
correct.
And is everybody familiar with where that is?
Yes, yes.
Are you not, I'm sorry, Ms. Asbury, you're not? No, I think.
Oh, sorry.
what-
No.
Hold on, one at a time.
On
I think what
Edgemont Ave.
Mr. Kynett said is, yes,
Edgemont Ave.
opposite Crosby.
Right, we don't have.
That big church.
That church is shown in Exhibit 4,
Yes, it is.
and does that church have any on-site parking?
It does not.
Does it have any on-site parking for the residents or the parsonage?
It does not.
So there's no on-site parking
No, there's
for
not.
that? And in your estimation, is that lot larger than the lot at 44?
It is.
3rd Street?
Yes,
Would you say it's significantly larger?
yes.
I guess just real quickly, there was some concern about sort of commercialization of the neighborhood. Is a church or place of worship permitted in the R2 district?
It is.
And that's been permitted by right?
It's permitted by right, correct.
And that's the zoning designation for 44 East 23rd Street?
Correct.
And if you were to be required to provide off-street parking as required by the code, would you be able to comply?
No,
If there were no relief granted, would you have to cease using the property as a church?
yes,
Is it fair
Yes, it would.
Okay, so briefly, Ms. Wallace, do you have any questions for Mr. Clifford based on what he just testified to? About the parking? Okay.
If it's okay, I'm gonna refer to you as John because
That's
that's
fine.
the relationship he and I have. John, I don't know exactly all your property is responsible for.
Ms. Walker,
However,
you saw this, Mike?
However, by being rooming homes in that area, recovery homes, there is multiple work trucks there every morning before the guys that are recovering go to work. But I don't think you're responsible for those guys, right? But those are parking spots that are unavailable to us. Secondly, as far as your attorney is concerned, you know, he's being paid and he has to do what he's doing now. But we're at the point where that property was available. I wanted to buy it as a residential. It was never set up for a church or a business. I didn't want to live in that area, type of area. So that's where I'm having my anxiety attack about. I came up here, once I found out that was the case, I want to be out of here. I want to go. This is not for me. So I came up here to try to make my home into a duplex if that's going to be the case around here. So I found out I couldn't do it. So I'm going to go with comply with the way you guys tell me what's appropriate and what's not. I'm not going to do the duplex first and then come and say, oh, I'm sorry, I did it. And now that I know that a church could be there and I have the same square footage, so should we all just do a church?
Thank you, Ms. Wallace. Ms. Asbury, do you have any questions for Mr. Clifford? Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Clifford? Okay. It's okay.
I just want to mention, they said about the church on Edgemont Avenue. That church has been there over 35 years. I've been a resident of Chester for 35 years. When I came, that church was existing. Yes, we complained about the parking, and they made sure people parked in the lot across the street, which used to be where I worked. It was Southeast National Bank. I know that because I had to write the letter to explain, to okay it, for their parishioners to park there on Sunday. Now it's a dollar store. I'm not affiliated with that church, so I don't know, and I'm no longer working, so I don't know whether they have some kind of agreement that they park there. But that church has been there, and they had found parking for their parishioners. I just want to make that clear for you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just to ask you a couple questions.
Certainly.
About what you said. So when that church made arrangements with another property to allow parishioners to park there, you were okay with that?
I had nothing to do with that.
But I mean, you were okay with
I don't
people
live on
parking
that,
somewhere
no,
else?
I don't live at that area, so I had nothing to do with it. I just mentioned it because I worked there for Southeast National Bank. It used to be a mortgage center, and they wanted to use that parking lot. I have nothing to do with Edgemont Avenue. I live on 24th Street, so I don't feel that it's appropriate for me to give my opinion on what happens on Edgemont Avenue.
I'm sorry, I thought when you were testifying or making your remarks, you said something about writing a letter that it was okay.
Oh, that was one of my jobs.
I believe it was on behalf of the bank
Yeah,
in the scope of her
representing the
employment.
bank, not myself.
I didn't understand that.
No, not myself. I just work for Southeast, which is now a defunct bank anyway, so. Thank you. That's a, do you have anything else? Mike?
Thank you, Ms. Asbury.
I only want to say this again on behalf of my property, my little property that I own, right? I want to speak on behalf of the little property that I own, single mother, and I own it, right? So the whole thing about it is we keep going back and forth about parking. There was no church, so we don't have to address that, okay?
Fairly, Ms. Wallace, we do have to address it. It's part of the, it's
Okay.
part of the application. So
Okay. Okay.
if the board rules that a church isn't permitted, then we don't have to talk
Okay,
parking. But if they
got you.
talk about the parking, if they decide a
Okay.
church is permitted, then
Okay.
we have to talk about the parking.
Okay,
So
okay,
it's
thank
part of the
you.
conversation.
Thank you, thank you. So basically, what I found was the people who attend the food bank, and I told you guys the last time, I'm one of them. Single parent, disabled, fixed income, no welfare, right? I attended. However, the ones that attended, one week we went up there and everybody was sort of forced hand to sign this thing saying how great it was for them. I started like going a little bit, no, please, you don't have to sign that to get a loaf of bread or a tomato or egg. That's not fair. So I don't know, John, you must have made up a bunch of things like that for the people that's at your mercy for the food bank. But that wasn't even so much it at that point, because they signing this piece of paper, but these folks are not right there in the area that we're talking about. The people who attend his church do not, I know my neighbors, they don't attend it. The kids don't go to the after-school program. We only have 3 kids on my block, my neighbors, and her kids are afraid of the different guys, the turnover. So you're not advocating for us. Now, the people that spoke on behalf of you last week, John, the last time, those people, if they can provide me with a PICO bill, one of the Chester water bills that I didn't realize when I moved out here, I get 3 separate bills. If they could provide me with something like that, then they can have a say. But meanwhile, here, I got a water bill, electric bill, taxes that I'm backed up on paying. Sorry, guys, paying a little, backing it down. So those people, their opinion don't count. And whoever that man was over there at the council, he's speaking on something that was out of his district. I'm speaking, John, I'm not here because I don't like you. I'm here because I'm speaking on my one property. Now, if you want to rent me, you can. Give me enough to relocate, and then what you guys do is your business. You got a question
Ms.
for me?
Wallace, we're a little bit
I'm
beyond
going-
the scope of this
he-
hearing at this point, okay?
Okay, all right. got it.
Thank you. I think where we,
Reminder, I can only take up one person speaking at a time, so please be mindful.
I'm just going to go back. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Clifford? I think there are, yes.
Afternoon,
Good afternoon.
you said that you're gonna put cones out. Is it residents, is it residents that live on that block?
Not on Crosby. The houses are either
Put the cones out?
on Crosby Street.
All right, do you have permission to put the cones out? That's something, no one owns a parking spot.
Correct. Nobody does own the parking spot.
Did you seek any kind of permission to
No.
block that spot off?
No.
Thank you. I got one question for Ms. Wallace.
Sure.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Before we switch, anything else from Mr. Clifford?
No.
Okay. Ms. Wallace, do you mind coming up to the microphone?
I'm sorry, please forgive me, Ms. Wallace. The young lady in the red, please forgive me.
Ms. Asbury.
Sorry, I don't know.
Ms. Asbury.
Ms. Asbury, please forgive me, I mixed up the name. I didn't have a question for you, Ms. Wallace.
Oh, it was the wrong person?
Mr. Asbury.
I'm
Okay,
sorry,
okay.
I'm sorry.
No, sir. Speak on the mic.
I'm sorry, I have a question for Ms. Asbury, not Ms. Wallace.
Yes,
Yes, Ms. Asbury, afternoon. You stated that you wrote the letter? for
yeah,
the-
help with that. I was in the collections department, and the secretary was, I believe she was out or something. So back then, I'm talking, was she born? Over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You just did what you were told to do.
Right.
And they said that they want to, how I remember it is somebody and I sat down and,
Right. I just wanted to know if you remember, probably don't, it's so long.
No,
But if
it
you
was
do
over
remember,
30 years.
Did they have an ending date on that contract?
oh, it was no contract.
Agreement, rather, did they have an ending date? like-
No, I don't think so. So I don't know. Just helped write the letter, and I can't even remember who the minister was that came over and got it.
Yeah, that's fine, I didn't think, I was just.
Okay, it was not my job. I was
Yeah.
not a secretary, but I had to cover the secretarial staff when they weren't there.
I'm clear. I was
Okay.
just wondering.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Asbury. Mr. Gannett, is that all of your rebuttal then?
It is, thank you.
Okay, so at this point, we will take any public comment that was,
One last question.
oh, I'm sorry, Ms.
My
Jackson.
apologies. Yeah, can I ask? Do you know what the approximate distance is between where the church, where you intend for the church to be and the parking lot that you'll be using?
I don't off the top of my head.
Okay.
The distance between the church and it's at the end of the block.
One city block, okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
maybe 100 yards or something, estimate,
all right. thank
70
you.
yards, I don't know.
Right, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So at this time, the board will take public comment from anybody who was not able to offer public comment at the November 20th hearing, only on applications number 4 and 5 for 42 and 44 East 23rd Street. Is there anyone who wants to make public comment on those two applications? Ma'am, if you can come forward and we'll have, introduce yourself and we'll have you sworn in.
I did speak at the last one. I just want to know if I can speak at this one also.
Do you have anything additional to offer based on the testimony that was offered today?
I do.
Okay, then if you can state your name.
My name is Joanne Hinterlong. Hinterlong.
You remain under oath.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. What I'm here to say is I've lived in that neighborhood for 57 years. I am 63 years old, okay? I had friends up there when I was younger. We played up there and all that, okay? They're complaining about the parking on 24th Street. The church is located on 23rd Street and Crosby. Okay, so there is plenty of parking there, number one. Number two, the house that the lady was trying to buy on the corner that they made into the church had been vacant since, I believe, 2016, because my daughter would live 3 doors down from there. Now she lives 4 doors the opposite way. So, to me, I don't understand why they're making such a big stink about all of this if they're not parking in front of their houses. They're parking on 24th or 23rd Street, not 24th Street. They're parking on Crosby Street, which is a side street. So, I'm here to save the church because the church has done so good in that community right there. And that's all I have to say.
Thank
I
you.
could keep going, but
No.
I will stop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, it's just public comment at this point. No, that's okay. These aren't accusations of character. It's fine. Understood. Stop. We can't, stop. We cannot all talk at once. This is a hearing with a record.
Let's
there
just have
any-
the understanding that we are not taking any personal offense to these are people's personal comments, and we are able to discern
The
that.
difference, right?
Is there any other public comment that wasn't offered last time? All right, seeing none, would the board like to adjourn into executive session
Yes.
Please.
on 4 and 5? They're moved into the record, yes. Board ready? All right, so the board has asked me to put, oh, thank you. Board has asked me to put a motion forward to see if it will move. For application number 4-24, the motion would be that the board has determined that the notice of violation was issued in error and no relief is required. Is there a motion? It's for the residents.
Yes.
So it's being moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Will note none. For application number 5-24, which is 44 East 23rd Street, regarding the place of worship, the motion will be put forward to deny all requested relief. Is there a motion?
A motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries 3-1. Written decisions will be issued on those two applications within 45 days of this afternoon. All right, we will move on to the second portion of these, which is application 624 and 724. I will read the two addresses. The requested relief for these two properties is identical, so if the applicant will indulge me, I'm only going to read that once, if that's okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. So the application 6-24 is of John and Emily Clifford for the property located at 55 East 24th Street, parcel ID number 49010142220 in the R2 medium-low density residential district, and application number 7-24, Greenhouse Recovery, 59 East 24th Street, parcel ID number 49010142400 in the R2 medium-low density residential district. Both applications request the following relief. I'm not doing that, right? That's not me. I'm too close. Okay. Appeal. I feel jinxed. Appeal of the notice of violation dated August 29th, 2024 for violation of section 1325.01 parentheses 1 for use of the subject property as a recovery house or treatment center, and section 1363.06 sub A1 for failure to secure a zoning permit, a reasonable accommodation under the Fair Housing Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, and/or Rehabilitation Act to permit use of the subject property as a sober living home in excess of 4 unrelated family members, a validity challenge to the zoning ordinance related to the use of sober living home, and in the alternative, any variance relief to permit use of the subject property as a sober living home. We'll note that Mr. Kynette is representing the applicant on both applications. And the board will enter the following exhibits for both applications. ZHB1 will be the application packet. ZHB2 will be the notice of hearing. ZHB3 will be the proof of publication. ZHB4 will be the posting affidavit, and ZHB5 will be the affidavit of mailing. We'll note that these were advertised for the November 20th, 2024 hearing, and were continued on the record to today's date and time in council chambers. Mr. Kynette, in order to move this forward, I'm assuming, can I assume Ms. Wallace and Ms. Asbury, you're requesting party status for these applications as well?
No, I got with you. I was just seeing the hand.
Okay, as, it was just a, what's your question? Will you be able to speak afterwards? In the, it will work the same way. Okay. Mr. Kynette, since their proximity has not changed and these properties are all abutting, I would assume there's no differentiating. Okay. So we'll grant Ms. Wallace and Ms. Asbury party status for these applications 6 and 7 as well. Is there additional party status that's being requested? Can you come up to the microphone, please? Can't even smile. Can you please state your name?
Courtney Asbury.
Does the court reporter need that spelled?
Courtney, Courtney. Asbury, same last name, same way.
And
You're welcome.
Ms. Asbury, what's your your address?
53 East 24th Street.
53 East 24th Street. So you're what, a block away from,
I'm on the same block.
same block, I'm sorry, this is 55. You're
I'm
abutting,
next door.
abutting property?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Kynette, any questions? No. Okay. So I'll recommend to the board that this Ms. Asbury is also granted party status for
Thank you.
these applications. Any objection?
None?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Asbury.
Thank you.
Any additional party status for applications 6 and 7? All right, we're going to proceed. Mr. Kynette, the floor is yours, and like we did last time, these two, since the relief is exactly the same, will allow you to present them how you want in concert with each other.
Well, thank you first for your time on a Wednesday afternoon. My name is Ken Kynette, attorney ID 62078, and I'm here representing John and Emily Clifford and Greenhouse Recovery in cases 6-24 and 7-24. As your counsel has said, that the cases are, in most respects, they're similar, so we can consolidate them for efficiency of time, and we'll point out the differences as we get to them, and hopefully that will allow us to do this a little bit more expeditiously while doing it correctly. We're here today because the City Planning Department issued notice of violation to our clients at their properties at 55 East 24th Street and 59 East 24th Street. 55 East 24th Street is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Clifford, and it's leased to Greenhouse Recovery, which is a Pennsylvania 501c3 nonprofit. 59 East 24th Street is a single-family home. It's also located in the R2 single-family residential zoning district, and it is owned by Greenhouse Recovery. The basis of the notice of violation are the same. It was operating a recovery house at the property without a zoning permit, and stating that a recovery house is the equivalent of a treatment center, which has a specific definition under the zoning ordinance. And I'd like to just read that onto the record, if I may. Let's see.
Can you just note the section number when you do that?
I will do that. So this is Article 1365, definitions of the city zoning ordinance. So a treatment center is a use involving one or more of the following. A is a use other than a prison or a hospital, providing housing for 3 or more unrelated persons who need specialized housing, treatment, and/or counseling because of current addiction to a controlled substance that was used in an illegal manner, or alcohol. B is a methadone treatment facility, which shall be defined as an outpatient facility licensed by the Pennsylvania Department of Health to use the drug methadone in the treatment, maintenance, or detoxification of persons with drug addictions. C is a use involving the lawful sale and distribution of marijuana products for medical purposes. And there's also then, it says, C standards in Article 1347, also a group home that exceeds the number of residents allowed by this ordinance within a group home be regulated as a treatment center. See the modification provisions of Section 1363.11d5. So the notices of violation that were issued equated a sober living home with a treatment center as defined in the ordinance. Our client filed an appeal of the notices of violation and also included an application for additional requests for relief to allow the properties to be used as sober living homes. That is in your packet that I handed out to you of exhibits. The exhibit packages are kind of large, but they're a little bit redundant. So that's under the exhibit A1. So the first part of our is the appeal of the notice a violation. This is similar to what we talked about in the other cases that you heard. We believe that the notices of violation are improper and should be dismissed because they were not issued by the zoning officer as required both by your code in Article 1363-06B and 1363-10, and under the Municipalities Planning Code of Pennsylvania under Sections 614, and that they failed to notify the property owner of the property owner's right to appeal, which is also in your code and under Section 616.15 of the MPC. And as we had objected before, is that failure to follow the code are grounds for dismissal of the notices of violation themselves. I don't know if you want to take that under advisement or rule on that.
We're taking it under advisement, so we're to the last application.
Okay, thank you. So addressing the substance of the applications and the relief we're looking for, both properties, the application has been made to allow for the use of the properties as sober living houses. And we've asked for that by variance, by challenges that the use itself is a valid use not provided for under your ordinance, that as applied to our use, it's not allowed. And then we've also asked for a reasonable accommodation and any other relief that's necessary to allow the two properties to be used as sober living facilities. These properties are sober living houses are a residential living arrangement for men who have completed a substance abuse rehabilitation program and are transitioning back into the community. The rehabilitation has been completed for these folks somewhere else and is not offered at the properties or by Greenhouse Recovery. The properties are not apartments, but they're rather, they remain as single-family homes with living arrangements with sharing of kitchens, bathrooms, family rooms, bedrooms, and other spaces within the house. They're not compartmentalized and they have not been altered to provide individual living facilities inside. From the outside, they appear as they did before as single-family residences. This allows the residents to eat together, socialize together, come and go, to work, to return to the home after the work, just as a family would do. The city code places no limit on the number of family members who may live together when they're related by blood marriage, adoption, or foster care. The definition of family, I'd like to read that to you. That's also in Section 365. I'm sorry, 1365. It's in Article 1365. So the definition of family under the city code is one or more individuals related by blood, marriage, or adoption, including persons receiving formal foster care, or four or fewer unrelated individuals who maintain a common household and live within one dwelling unit. A family also expressly include numbers of unrelated persons provided by the group home provision of Article 1347 residing within a licensed group home as defined herein. Although through those provisions and the ability to request a reasonable accommodation under Article 1363-11D5, it is the city's intent to comply with the Federal Fair Housing Act and the amendments and the Americans with Disabilities Act as amended. So basically, the city code places no limit on a family that's related by blood, marriage, adoption, or foster care, but it limits unrelated persons to four in the same household. For group homes or uses such as sober living homes, those are protected classes of persons, and they are not subject to differentiation from a normal family definition without the city showing good cause for that. The code itself allows for a reasonable accommodation to increase the number of folks that are unrelated through a public hearing process such as we're going through today. And it also would allow a group home to go from 4 to 6, and with a reasonable accommodation, it allows that number of 6 to be increased beyond 6 without a limitation. As I said, the group home and the sober living home residents are protected classes of people under federal law, the Fair Housing Act amendments, and under Pennsylvania state law, which has adopted the Fair Housing Act amendments. The definition says it's the intent of the city to comply with the Fair Housing Act amendments, but it does treat folks with disabilities differently, and the code does not expressly provide for sober living use. Clearly, the definition of the treatment center, as I read out earlier, does not encompass a sober living house. It's not quite a group home either, because the group home itself requires trained professionals to be on site to assist those in the group home with whatever their particular needs might be. This is the sober living house is a legitimate and protected use that recognizes the residents and a family and our folks under the law are considered to have disabilities. So in the process that we're in now, I look at where the law applies to this. The Fair Housing Act amendments recognize those recovering from substance abuse to be disabled and protected by the Act, and that the city is not permitted to discriminate where they may live or how they may live on the basis of this disability. From the perspective of the Act, they're like any other family, need to be treated similarly under the city code as would a family made up of those related by blood, marriage, adoption, or foster care. Without an arbitrary limitation on the number of members, the ordinance, with the arbitrary limitation on number of family members, the ordinance treats a protected class of folks differently than it treats a regular traditional family. And it allows a greater number of family members without any type of additional relief to occupy a residence than it would in a protected class under the Fair Housing Act amendments. We believe that the ordinance, because it does not provide for the sober living house at all, and the fact that it requires a special hearing or a special process in order to increase the number of folks that may live in a house as a family without any justification. We believe that both of those violate the constitutional rights of a protected class of people that are in the sober living housing. We have provided a packet for you for each of these cases, and I'll go through quickly what's in there. Exhibit 1 is my cover letter to the city with the appeal and the application for these proceedings, dated September 27th, 2024. There is a copy of the August 29th, 2024 notice of violation from the Assistant Planning Director. There's one for each property. There's a July 6, 2024 deed into to John and Emily Clifford for 55 East 24th Street. There is an August 17th, 2023 deed into the appellant's greenhouse recovery for 59 East 24th Street, and there's a lease agreement between the Cliffords and the appellant's greenhouse recovery for 55 East 24th Street, and there's various property photos of each property as required by your code. Exhibit 2 is the same for both cases. There's excerpts from the municipality's planning code in sections 614 and 616.1 and corresponding sections of the city code, article 1363.10 and 1362.06. Exhibit 3 is the same for both cases. It's an IRS letter dated August 11th, 2023, recognizing Greenhouse Recovery as a 501c3 organization under the IRS code. Exhibit 4 is a certificate of licensure for Greenhouse Recovery. There's one in the 55 East 24th Street packet for 6 residents at 55 East 24th Street, issued by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs. And there is in the 59 East 24th Street packet, it's the same Exhibit 4 as a certificate of licensure for greenhouse recovery for 59 East 24th Street for 11 residents issued by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Drug and Alcohol Programs. And Exhibit 5 is the same for both cases. It's a disability rights Pennsylvania information confirming that the Fair Housing Act amendments protects people with handicaps, broadly defined as individuals with physical or mental impairment which substantially limit one or more major life activities, and persons recovering from substance abuse are considered to have a disability under the Fair Housing Act amendments so long as they are not engaged currently in illegal use of or addiction to controlled substances. Exhibit 6 is the same for both cases. It's an excerpt from the Fair Housing Act amendment affirming that the act protects people with a history of substance abuse from discrimination in housing. The people who have completed rehabilitation programs are considered disabled, just like those that are the subject of the hearing today. It also includes an Eastern District of Pennsylvania federal case of Remed Recovery Care Centers versus Willistown Township, which was decided in 1999, which the facts are somewhat similar, although this case involved a group home, but the court found that the township was in violation of the Fair Housing Act amendments when it did not provide a reasonable accommodation as to the number of residents allowed to live in a group home, and that they would be denied the opportunity to live in a dwelling or neighborhood of their choice, and that it would would result in a financial hardship caused to the provider of the home if the reasonable accommodation was not made. Exhibit 7 excuse me, is the same for both cases. It's a December 4th, 2023 letter from the Pennsylvania Representative Carol Kazim to the Delaware County Department of Human Services supporting greenhouse recovery and its program, which helps fight homelessness and poverty, particularly through its 12 to 18-month residential program, which is really the main reason why we're here. And under that backdrop, if it pleases the board, it would call John Clifford.
Please. Mr. Clifford, you understand you remain under oath for this hearing as well?
I do. Thank you.
Should I have him sworn since these are separate hearings?
I think it's fine to note it on the record that he's sworn.
Mr. Clifford, where do you live?
At 42 East 23rd Street, Chester, PA, 19013.
And how long have you lived there?
We purchased in October of 2018.
And with whom do you live at that address?
Me, my wife, and my children.
Is it fair to say you live there with your family?
Correct, yes.
And where is 42 East 23rd Street in relation to 55 East 24th Street?
It's catty corner in my backyard, right in my backyard. It's pretty much the house behind us, one over.
And if I can draw your attention to Exhibit 1 of the 55 East 24th Street package, particularly page 22. Can you take a look at that?
Yes, correct.
And what is on that page?
It's a picture of our neighborhood, 24th, 23rd, Crosby,
Is it
Edgemont.
an aerial photograph?
It is. It's an overhead photograph.
And does the board have that in front of them?
Yes.
Can you identify for the board where your property is there compared to 55 East 24th Street and 59 East 24th Street?
Well, our house would be the one on the corner of Crosby and 23rd, and it would be catty corner to the left. Do you need this?
No.
It would be catty corner behind our, directly in our back, next to our backyard.
Does the board understand that explanation, or should
Yeah.
the witness point it out?
Yeah, we know.
Got it.
Okay.
Just one second. Is there any way to make the lights brighter in here?
I thought it was just me.
I thought it was me too.
I felt
Do
sleepy
we
as
know,
well.
are they like on a dim setting?
They do.
We can go off the record for a second. Can we just check? Because it's been a struggle the entire time.
I'm like, okay.
Well, I saw that you were struggling too, but
I'm like, I'm getting sleepy in here. What's going on?
I mean, we don't need, like, we have flashlights. I just didn't know if the lights were already all the way turned up. Okay. Then we'll resume. It's fine.
Just to give, Justin, can we put these up? Just give us more light in Charlottesville?
If you want to go quickly, Miss Wallace. What these electronic?
Yeah. I'm like, I thought it was just me.
If you want to go quickly while we're taking care of this.
That ain't doing nothing. Said that ain't, well,
That makes a
like
difference.
it's my light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That helps,
Shannon.
at least a bit. Okay, thank you for your patience.
Did we want to take a quick break? You all right?
We can, I don't mind. We can break for it.
Break?
It's hard to fight this act.
No, I just want to be clear, since we had a little break there, in your testimony. You and your wife are the owners of 55 East 24th Street,
Yes, we are.
and Greenhouse Recovery is a tenant of that property,
Yes, it is.
and the deed for that property was in Exhibit 1,
Correct, yes.
and that's the correct deed for that
It
property?
is.
And how about, yes, I'm sorry. And the Greenhouse Recovery is
Excuse
the owner?
You gonna give you a mic?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Do you want to put your stuff on?
And Greenhouse Recovery is the fee owner of 59 East 24th Street,
It is, correct.
and the deed to that property was included in the 59 East 24th Street Exhibit A1.
Yes, it is.
And it, with respect to 59 East 24th Street and your home at 42 East 23rd Street, where is your home relative to that?
It's
that
directly in
parcel?
our backyard. It comes up to where we live.
It comes up to your property line?
Correct.
And that's
They
a
touch.
single-family home?
It is.
And at the time that these properties were purchased, were they existing homes?
Yes, they were.
And what was the condition of those homes when they were purchased?
They needed some work for them, but they were operatable.
And did you or did Greenhouse Recovery do any rehabilitation or renovation to those properties?
Yes, we did.
To which properties?
To both.
And those properties are served by a full set of utilities, water, sewer, electric?
Correct,
cable?
yes.
Were any other improvements made to the property?
Not that I know of.
Are there any other
No.
structures constructed on the property?
No, there's not.
If, are the homes open inside, or were they converted to apartments, or were they compartmentalized for individual living?
No, they're just a regular, normal house, like when we bought them.
And is it open in the same fashion as your home is
It is.
open? If you were to look at these from the street, is there anything to indicate that these houses are not single-family residences?
No, they just look like a normal house on a block.
They don't look commercial?
They do not.
There's no signage up?
No signage.
Could you explain to the board what Greenhouse Recovery is?
Yes. Greenhouse Recovery is a Pennsylvania nonprofit where we do sober living for people that have completed a treatment program already. We're designed to do 12 to 18 months as a Pennsylvania state licensed house to create a home-like environment with people in their recovery journey.
And are there services provided there, such as medicine in connection with rehabilitation?
We do not provide or prescribe or administer medications to anybody.
Do the residents that come and stay at these properties, have they already completed a rehabilitation program?
Yes, it's mandatory to get into our program.
And that type of rehabilitation does not go on at this property?
Correct.
Or either of the properties?
Correct.
And you are not dispensing methadone?
No,
And you're not selling marijuana?
we are not.
Is Greenhouse Recovery licensed with respect to these properties to provide sober living arrangements?
Yes, we're licensed to DDAP, the Department of Drug and Alcohol Procedures.
And if I ask you to take a look at Exhibit 4 in each of the property exhibit packages. So let's start with 55 East 24th Street.
Yes.
And can you identify what is in Exhibit 4?
Yes, this is our state licensing.
And what is the document called?
It's called a certificate of licensure.
And that is for, does it identify the property?
It does, for 55 East 24th Street, Chester, PA, 19013.
And does that license carry with it a number of residents that may occupy the property?
It does.
And what is that number for 55 East 24th Street?
It's 6.
And how is that,
Excuse me, I don't mean to cut you off. It'll help me if, when you go to the exhibit, if you give me the page number, so
Okay.
we can move. That's
55 is on tab 4, page 1.
All right, thank you.
And what goes into the licensing? I'm sorry, I don't know if I asked. Let me just step back. So for 55 East 24th Street, does the license identify the number of residents?
It does. It's 6.
It's 6. And do you know how that's established?
It is. Pennsylvania, the DDAP, Department of Drug and Alcohol Procedures, have developed guidelines for how many people can be in a room. It's based off 70 square foot. So based off the plans that we submit to DDAP and their inspection, they measure the rooms and decide how many people can be in a room.
Now, is this property at 55 East 24th Street, is that a 6-bedroom home?
It is not.
So there would be folks having to share bedrooms?
Correct.
And would they have to share the other facilities, the kitchen facilities?
Yes, they share everything like a family.
Okay, and so none of it is compartmentalized?
It is not.
And how about if we take a look at Exhibit 4 in the other package?
59, tab 4, page 1, has the same licensure for 59 East 24th Street.
And does that identify the number of residents allowed in that property?
It does. It's 11.
And is that established the same way?
It is. This is a 5-bedroom house.
Okay,
And the square footage, it decides how many people are allowed in the facility.
And that's the same type of arrangement where it's not compartmentalized or broken into individual living units?
Correct.
And the folks that live there would be sharing bedrooms?
Bedrooms, kitchens, bathrooms, they share everything like a family.
I'm sorry, did you state how many people are residing in each dwelling
No,
yet?
the licensing limit by
Okay.
the Department of Drug and Alcohol.
And what is the licensing limit for each property?
59 has a licensing limit of 11 people, and 55 has a licensing limit of 6 people. That's based on the square footage of the rooms.
Understood, 70 square foot
Per
person.
yes.
And is that bedroom space, or is that?
It's bedroom space, correct. It even goes deeper into this. Each bedroom actually has to have windows. There has to be 2 means of exits, fire extinguishers, lights. It goes very, very deep in depth how they develop that square footage.
So essentially, sorry to, I want to make sure this is clear. 55 has 420 square feet of bedroom space, definable, so it's 6 people, so they each have 70 square feet of bedroom space?
I don't know the total
I'm just
number.
doing math.
Simple math.
Yeah,
And then similarly, 11 times 70, so it's the same deal. So it's 59
Yeah.
is a significantly larger
it is,
dwelling?
it's 5 bedrooms, 4 upstairs, 1 on the first floor. There might be actually more square footage for that because, you know, the rooms might be bigger and, you know,
Okay, thank you.
but that's the bare minimum, correct.
Thank you for,
But 59 East 24th Street is a detached home, correct?
It's a single-family home, correct.
And 55 East 24th Street is one side of a twin.
Correct.
So is it fair to describe these residences as non-institutional residential settings?
Yes, they're a home.
And do you know what zoning district they're in?
They're in a residential R2.
And is that the same zoning district as your property, your home?
Yes.
And I think you may have said this quickly, but can you go over what's the average term of residence for a resident that comes to live in
Yeah.
one of these properties?
When someone comes in, they make the agreement to stay between 12 and 18 months.
And do these folks, do they eat together?
Yes.
Do they perform chores? They clean the house?
Yes, individual and then house chores.
And do they maintain the property, cut the lawn, pick up trash, rake leaves, that
Correct,
type of thing?
yes.
How about shopping?
They're each individual's responsible for their own food, so they would, yes, provide their own food.
And is it fair to say that in this type of living arrangement, they provide social comfort and support for one another?
Yes, that's the purpose behind the DDAP licensing, is to create the environment for people to grow as a family. It's instrumental for life transformation to live inside of a community.
Now, do these folks drive?
Some may. We actually ask people not to drive from the facility to the facility in our rules. But they can drive, they can own a motor vehicle as long as it's licensed and approved.
Are they allowed to come and go from the property?
Yes,
And is that without oversight?
correct.
Do they work?
Yes, they have to pay a required program fee. Some people might be in different financial situations, but we encourage work or volunteerism. There has to be some type of give back to the community.
So they would leave the property, or properties at some point in the day, go to work, and then return to the properties?
Correct.
And is that similar to what you do, where you live?
Yes.
And except for the relationship of these folks not being related, are they living, in your opinion, just like a traditional family would live?
Yes.
And is this the sober living arrangement that you provide, is this a co-educational?
No, it's just for men.
It's just for men?
Men only, for the obvious reasons.
And you had talked briefly, you had mentioned that there's a fee to live there. Can you go over a little bit into the finances of how you operate from a financial standpoint, how you operate these properties?
Yeah, well, we had to take loans out to be able to buy the properties. And each one of our properties has wired security system, wired smoke alarms. We have live cameras and exit signs, and we've had to take out debt to be able to help buy beds and dressers and all the supplies that's needed for someone to live in a family-like environment. So we had to take loans out to be able to do this, and somebody comes in and they pay a weekly program fee of $175. Most times when people come in, we help get them funding because they're coming out looking for so those fees go back to pay the previous debts that we've taken out on our properties.
So let's just do do a quick example. So for the folks that, if you were fully occupied at 55 East 24th Street, at $175 a week, I calculated that to be $1,050 per week. If there were 6 people living there all paying that fee.
Correct.
And does that sound right?
It does.
And then, so that would equate to $4,200 a month.
Correct.
And what does it cost you to operate 55 East 24th Street? Is it more than $4,200?
It is more than $4,200.
So even if you were at full capacity, you would still be running a deficit?
Correct.
And if you were not to have 6 residents that the license allows, would you be able to continue to operate this property?
We would not.
And how do you make up the shortfall?
We raise support from people outside the community that help support our programs. You know, that's how we were able to grow and survive.
Does Delaware County participate in the funding for the property?
We're one of 5 organizations that was awarded a contract with Delaware County, vetted at the highest level.
And how about if we talk about the residents at 59 East 24th Street? If we do that same mathematical exercise for 11 residents, I get $1,925 a week. Does that sound about right?
It does.
And how about, that would be about $7,700 per month? And does $7,700 per month cover the
So just see, that number is hypothetical. We actually run at probably about 70% capacity, so it's much lower than that. But we've had to take out lines of credit on that property to be able to do the renovations and some of the work that we've done. So we only use that house as 10 beds. We took one of the beds and made it a single room. So that number even drops a little bit lower than that. So after all the expenses with insurance and the bills that come along the way, we run a deficit.
Excuse me, I didn't hear the back to that. So you only operate at 70%, and what did you say after that? I didn't hear.
Yeah, so we're licensed for 11 beds for this house, but we only use 10. We took one bedroom and made it into a single room so we could have a better exit spot on the second floor. Each one of our houses has a ladder exit on the second floor as a second emergency exit, and it's best to have the clearest path possible. So we actually removed a bed from one of the rooms so we could have a better exit for that room. So it's 10 beds, and then we run at probably about a 70% capacity.
So even if this board were to grant you the reasonable accommodation, allow 6 residents at 55 and 11 residents at 59, the properties would still be operating at a deficit?
Correct.
Is that, I think to answer Mr. Nelson's question further, is the occupancy full? Is it rolling? How does it work?
Well, it's, no, we operate at about 70% capacity. So there rarely is a house entirely full.
And why is that?
Just changes the seasons. Everybody comes in their different paths. Somebody might be graduating, which leaves a bed open. You know, sometimes we move people to different places. They need to transfer out. Sometimes people make poor choices and we exit them from our program. So there's a series of reasons why we would have open beds at certain times.
Do the properties have on-site staff?
No.
Are there paid employees?
There are. We just hired a graduate that works between 8 and 10 hours a week, and we hired a bookkeeper at 4 hours a week. Pennsylvania DDAP guidelines developed the sober living rules to be able to be community-led. Peer-led is actually the legal term you'll find in the Pennsylvania DDAP law when they wrote that in. They're peer-led programs. I myself am not paid by Greenhouse Recovery. I operate as a volunteer, but we spend a lot of time with the guys in the houses making sure things are working well. Pretty much what happens is once somebody grows to be in the leadership position, they become a resident assistant, kind of the eyes and ears on the house to make sure people do chores. So it's peer oversight inside the programs, and that's how it works.
So there aren't any professionally trained
There are not.
personnel?
No, I am a licensed counselor, but I am not working on site.
So who set the rules?
The rules are governed by DDAP. They set the guidelines for what the rules have to be able to meet their legal standard, and then you pretty much have to write the standards. Like, our handbook is like 68 pages long. So when everybody comes in, they make an agreement to follow the rules and the standards, which have already been approved by DDAP ahead of time.
So my question is, I know DDAP standard is, but who sets the rules for the house?
So-
Who sets the guidelines? If we use
I
it
did.
in the family language, who's the father?
Yeah,
Just
me.
ain't talking about
Me.
agenda.
Correct. Yeah, I wrote everything. I have 10 years of experience. I worked at City Team, their long-term transformational program, for 10 years, and then took about a year to be able to write out all the guidelines and get them approved by the county, by the state. My apologies. It's very strict.
Did we copy of the rules?
We can provide that. It's not an exhibit. Oh, I'm told by my client it's proprietary for their company. And let me just step back, because I think I overlooked this. What is your relationship with Greenhouse Recovery?
On paper, I'm the CEO and president and founder, but I'm a volunteer for the organization.
But you're at the top of the totem pole as far as the organizational structure?
I am,
And
correct.
you run that organization as well?
I do, with a board of volunteer directors.
And let's go down sort of two paths. So if someone comes in and they live there for whatever the full term, let's say they were there for 18 months, what becomes of them at that point?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We have a module system or a stage system, how somebody works through the program, similar to high school, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. There's so many things you have to complete, so many things you need to get documented along the time. We actually start building in an exit plan. What does it look like for somebody to transition out? We start talking about it day one. It's one of the things it's new to the industry of how do we plan to get people out into living on their own, getting a job, developing income. So we have a full checklist of what it takes for somebody to be able to move out, and we help them develop guidelines. So it's not only time in the program, it's money saved, the community you're moving back into, making sure you're setting healthy boundaries. We build those things up to completion, and we have 10 people that complete it this year.
And where would those folks go to live once they left the...
Varies. They would move out into their own environment. Some go back to their families. Other people get their own rooms. Each individual is responsible for themselves. After they leave, they would go back into a family environment.
But they basically go back into community-type
Back
living?
into the community, correct.
Okay.
Each one of these people in Chester, actually, most of them work inside the city of Chester as well. So we like it.
And on the other hand, if somebody takes the road where they come into your program and they don't follow the rules, what happens to those folks?
So they get exited. We actually have 7 non-negotiables that would cause somebody immediately to be exited. The language we use is someone's either choosing to stay or they're choosing to leave, so it's up to them to be able to uphold the rules with high accountability. It's one of the reasons why we have electric key locks on our doors. We know who comes in and out. Everything's monitored with camera systems, so we hold them highly accountable for their behaviors and actions. It's another important thing living in a community because, as you know, in your house, everybody knows what everybody else is doing. That's the importance behind this. So we actually have a structure set up if somebody did have some type of failing outside of what our 7 non-negotiables are, which would be using, stealing, breaking curfew, racism, having a weapon, and any acts of violence, verbal or physical threats would cause people to leave our facility immediately. No ifs, ands, or buts. Outside of that, we have a correction system on how we try to work with people on correcting their behavior, because the purpose for this is to be able to change the inner person so they learn how to make healthy decisions that not only impact them, but the people in their community as well, adding value when they leave because they become part of the workforce and bring in income and go back to their family, become dads again, and so on and so forth along the way.
And this is all through living in the peer system?
Correct.
So within the operation, you're not providing clinical services?
We are not.
No addiction rehabilitation or treatment?
No.
You're not dispensing medicines for treatment?
We are not.
There's no the treatment or counseling because of addiction to a controlled substance that was used in an illegal manner?
No.
Or alcohol?
Nope.
You don't provide on-site medically trained personnel?
We do not.
Are there any other specifically trained personnel that is at the property, that basically lives at the property or works at the property on a full-time basis?
No.
Do you offer any other services at the home other than as a communal residence?
No, that's it.
So, in your opinion, when the notice of violation likens your use to a treatment center, as it's defined in the zoning code, do you agree with it?
No.
That characterization?
No, I do not, and actually, according to DDAP, under the Pennsylvania guidelines that were written into law, it actually says sober living is not treatment. People with SUDs are people that have come out of treatment and they're in recovery, so they do not classify this as treatment.
Do you understand that the use that you're providing is consistent with the residential uses allowed in the R2 zoning district?
Yes.
And your residents, once again, are only folks who have completed rehabilitation and recovery.
Yes.
So they're not coming into your properties having an addiction or a dependency.
Correct. They have to come from a treatment facility or a transfer from already completed something.
And in the time that you've had these properties in operation, have you had any police activity with respect to the resident behavior?
Not to negative resident behavior. There has been a few police shown up because a guy had a heart attack and the ambulance showed up. There's been a few of those cases. We have not had any overdoses or any police called for challenges that I'm aware of.
Now, as far as the use...
There was no overdoses?
We have had no overdoses at our property, no. And actually, you can search it real easy through Delco Dispatch. You can Google a property, and it actually provides all the information for properties. And
I'm aware of that.
yeah, that's fair.
So
Just want to make sure I'm clear. So there has been activity at one or both of the houses, medical activity, but it was because of a heart attack?
A suspected heart attack, yeah. And there might have been a few other calls. I can't recollect exactly what there was, but there has been no overdoses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any calls for violent activity?
No, the police have not been called for violent activity.
Okay. Thank you.
any other criminal activity?
No, it's actually part of our rules. If there's any illegal activity, we'd exit the person from the program immediately.
And probably, just since we're sort of doing a combined record, we want to make sure that response is with respect to both 55 and 59 East 24th Street.
Correct.
Does that include usage of illegal substances?
We would not call the police if someone tested positive for a thing.
Not calling the police, but exiting the
We have exited people before because they've tested positive. We haven't proven anybody using substances in our facility.
But evidence of use, current use.
Evidence of use, possession. We drug test and breathalyze, so it could be either one of those things or admittance. Sometimes people just voluntarily say, I messed up.
And that results in exiting the
It
program.
results in exiting, but specifically when someone relapse, our job is to get somebody back into treatment, so we work with the other Delco providers to be able to get them into treatment so they don't go back out into the streets and, you know.
I understood. I wasn't suggesting that you would just say, there's the door and,
Yes,
and
correct.
you're done, that you would find them an appropriate
Yeah.
way to address their issue, but
No.
they would no longer be living there as soon as a placement is found.
Correct, because we consider that a house issue and a stumbling block to being set free.
Understood. Thank you.
Well, let me ask you, when I read the definition of family onto the record, there was mention of a group home as being defined as part of a family or within the definition of family. Is that definition a sober living house? Does that cover a sober living house?
It does not.
And why do you think it does not?
Well, you need medical professionals to live on site and to monitor the individuals. We're a peer-led, under the licensing, we're a peer-led model.
So you're not providing any special care for the persons that are living there?
We are not.
If we take that section out of the definition, that phrase, and it would say a group home is a dwelling unit operated as by a responsible organization with a program to provide supportive living arrangements for individuals due to disability. Does that more closely?
Yes, I would.
And that's amending Article 1365 of the definition of group home. And how about the definition of group home goes on to say that it should expressly include facilities for supervised care of persons with disabilities subject to protection under the Federal Fair Housing Act as amended. So similarly, if we were to strike from that definition for supervised care of persons with disabilities, and so that it read that the definition shall expressly include facilities for persons with disabilities subject to protection under the Federal Fair Housing Act as amended. Would that accurately describe the sober housing?
Yes, it would.
And in your capacity as the president of Greenhouse Recovery, have you become familiar with the Fair Housing Act amendments?
Yes, I have.
And does the Fair Housing Act amendments, do they define, or how do they treat the residents of a sober living facility? Are they protected?
Yes, they're protected. They're considered disabled.
And are they also protected under the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes, they are.
And is that similarly as being disabled?
Yes, you cannot discriminate against them.
And being that they are identified as persons with disabilities, is it your understanding that they're protected from discrimination in housing and that would not allow them to live in a place or home of their choosing?
Correct, yes.
And that's not to say that if they wanted to live in a commercial district, that they would have the right to live in a commercial district.
Correct. They can live where a family lives.
And I think you already said that you think the difference between your use and the group home as defined in the township code is basically that a group home requires adequate trained staff supervision for the number and types of residents.
Yes, that's correct.
And you're not required to provide that?
No, we are not.
And you do not provide that?
No, we do not.
And under the Fair Housing Act amendments, the folks with disabilities, as you've stated, your residents are considered to have, are they also considered to be a family?
Yes, they are.
And the city zoning code would only allow 4, then unrelated,
Yes.
under its definition of a family.
That's correct.
Was there anything that you noticed in that definition that indicated why that limitation would be 4? Did you see any justification for it?
No, I did not.
And that limitation of 4 persons as a family, that does not apply to persons who are a family by blood, marriage, adoption, or foster care.
Correct.
And that number can be expanded beyond 4?
It's unlimited. There's no limit to it.
Well, the limitation of
family.
the definition of unrelated occupants.
Oh, unrelated.
Of 4.
It's 4, correct.
Right.
Yes.
And that can be expanded?
No.
Well, if it were a group home,
Oh, if it were a group home, yes, it can be expanded.
and what could that be expanded to?
I think it said 6 on there or more by special,
By a reasonable
by
accommodation?
reasonable accommodation.
And that's what you're seeking, a reasonable accommodation?
Yes,
And that's to allow the use to the extent that it doesn't qualify as a group home?
correct, yes.
And you were asking for these properties for the reasonable accommodation to match the licensure?
Yes, please.
So 6 persons for 55 East 24th Street and 11 persons for 59 East 24th Street.
Yes, correct.
So if the residents of the home are related by blood, marriage, adoption, or foster care, Are they required to apply for a reasonable accommodation?
They do not need to apply for anything.
Is there any limitation that you saw on the number of residents that would be allowed in the property?
No, they could have an unlimited.
So the way the ordinance or the code is written, only if you're in a protected class recognized by the Fair Housing Act amendments do you have to apply for special permission to exceed 4 persons.
Yes.
Would you be able, in the operation of these 2 properties, would you be able to survive financially with a limitation of 4 occupants?
We would not.
How about for 55 East 24th Street with 6 people?
We wouldn't, if it was 4 people there or 6.
If you were allowed to have 6 people,
Yes, we could operate.
you could operate there?
Yes.
And how about for 59 East 24th Street?
If there was 6 people.
If you had the 11 people, if you were allowed a reasonable accommodation?
Oh, yes, we can continue to operate.
And when those properties operate at a deficit, are there grants or contributions that make up the difference?
Yes.
And that would not be true if it were limited to 4 people?
Yes, we wouldn't have the access to that right now.
So can I ask a question on that? Mr. Clifford, you stated now previously that the fees that you take in, essentially the rents you take in, do not cover your expenses.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So I guess but you also stated that the residents are responsible for their own food, their own care, essentially, their own clothing, I assume. What are those expenses going to?
So, first of all, we took debt out to be able to buy the beds and the dressers and all those things. So it goes to pay the mortgage, the utilities. Along the way, there's insurance, there's the alarm company. We have the, normal bills anybody would have, the exterminator. There are two staff that are being paid out of that, so it's going to pay back debts, and then also the continual expenses that we have going forward.
And you say, and I guess one is operating at 100% capacity, the 6-bed unit, and the other is operating at 70% capacity with,
Correct.
with 10 out of 11 possible beds being filled.
7 technically, but
I'm
yeah,
sorry?
7 would be 70% at a time.
How many persons are residing in 59 at this point?
7 right now.
7 out of 11.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you able to operate 59 currently, or are you
Yes.
running at a deficit?
No, currently we do run a minor deficit right now, yes.
Okay, I think that's all I have on that for now.
I have a question.
Yes.
So the exception that's being requested is for 11, correct, for 59?
Yes, please.
But you have 10 beds at 59.
Correct.
So is there a reason why the ask is 11 when there's actually 10 beds? Because the 1 bed was removed in order to allow for egress.
Yes, we have plans to correct that. Oh, I'm sorry, that was me.
Who knows?
Sorry. We have plans to correct that at some point when we get around to it. There's a laundry list of things that we have to paint and fix and along the way, but we plan to correct that at some point.
So for future expansion of use, you're asking 11.
Well, yeah, it's what we have license for right
Okay.
now. We removed the bed so we could make it safer.
Okay, another question. You don't have any overnight caregivers or staff on site?
Correct.
Okay, so the support staff is daytime support staff?
No, there is no support staff at all. It's considered a peer model.
Okay,
So
but the
it-
two staff people are people that don't, can you just
Yes,
clarify
correct.
what
So,
they do?
so we have staff individuals to help with like intakes, to be able to communicate back and forth with treatment centers. How do we bring people in when they come in? There's like a stack of paperwork, probably about this thick, that has to be done with each individual. We do follow up with each individual to find out how they go with their program. Do you have a sponsor? You have to call them. We check people's belongings. So it's getting people in, and then we have somebody to help with bookkeeping and paperwork along the way. Everybody else that serves as a volunteer. So actually in the house, somebody gets promoted in the house, somebody that's done well in the program that becomes what we call a resident assistant. They're not technically a house manager, but they're a resident assistant, a peer that's been down the program long enough that their commitment is to help the other people. We just call it accountability. And those become the people in the house. We actually appoint an RA and an assistant RA in each house to be able to monitor chores, people coming and going, if there's anything that pops up. And we actually train each resident when they come in to hold each other accountable. So if there's anything weird that pops up, if there's somebody doing illegal activity, they come and share it with us because it's in the best interest of an individual to be well. So they want accountability for themselves. So it's part of our program standards that's how we work in accountability within the peer-led model and Pennsylvania is the one that wrote that into
So
law.
without in-house oversight, how are behaviors monitored? I know you mentioned that there's keyless entry,
Mhm.
coded, which I'm sure is tracked.
Yep.
You mentioned live cameras, but in the event of any type of medical emergency or behavior emergencies in the community, in the neighborhood, how is that monitored?
I don't think I understand the question.
So,
So if
say
somebody
there
in the
was-
community needed help?
no,
Or
so say there was something that happened at the house and they needed like like there was any police
they had to call
calls?
911?
Okay.
Yeah. So we train each one of our RAs. We have a system on how we train people to deal with different types of incidents. So we do fire drills once a month. We test fire alarms. We work out. Each one of our resident assistants actually has a series of training that has to go through DDAP, like communicable disease training, first aid, CPR. There's a training to actually use a fire extinguisher, and it goes on and on and on. So we actually train our RAs, and we try to get that information to each person when they come into the program so they know what's going on. And obviously, and then we also do training if there was an overdose. We get Narcan for free from the county. We have training for that. We actually have people that come out to our recovery meetings that will share how to actually administer these things if there was a challenge. So we talk about those things ahead of time. Second of all, we actually have video and audio, and our residents sign off on those things ahead of time so I can review anything at any point at any time. And you know, if there's a video and audio around, it takes out all questions for things. So we've set the bar high and above, even above DDAP standards when it comes to what we do with accountability. So if there was, I'm sorry, if there was an incident, they have to contact us right away, and we actually have an incident report we fill out if someone falls, gets injured. If someone would relapse, we actually have a letter that has to be written and given to the person. We have to contact their this is all the DDAP policies, and the county, we actually have to contact their emergency contact to let them know that that person relapsed. So there's structure built in to be able to navigate all of these things. There's two sets of incident trainings that we've developed if there was anything in the community. First one's to call 911, second call is to me right away.
So there are multiple systems put in place in order to support the program, although you're living as a family.
Yes.
So there are systems and processes and trainings.
Yep.
And support meetings and exit signs and all the things that are put into this property in order to support the family.
Correct.
Okay.
So in the, can I go on? In the group home statute, it actually says there needs to be lit lit exit signs and fire extinguishers. It says the same thing in the DDAP guidelines.
Okay.
So we have to have them developed for all these things. We don't actually do support meetings inside the houses. There is no group meetings. I might have misspoke. If I said that, I apologize. But it would be any policies you have in place in our house. Like we take our kids what it would look like to go through a fire alarm, and we do those things as a family. I think the reason we need the higher a level of accountability is just the nature of what we're doing. And we want everybody in our house to have that same information that everybody else does. That's why we've taken on those standards above and beyond.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Clifford, if the board is to grant a reasonable accommodation at either property, would that put any additional burden on the city or city services?
It would not.
Would it cost the city any more in terms of its resources?
It does not.
Will it disrupt the city's zoning scheme for the R2 district?
It does not.
Well, the houses, both houses are in the R2 residential district, correct?
Correct.
And those dwellings don't have any exterior improvements associated with this use?
They do not.
There's no signage?
There is not. No signs.
And there will be no signage?
There will be no signage.
And if you were to stand at the street and look at these properties, they would look just as a residential with a traditional
Correct.
family living in them?
Yes.
If the reasonable accommodation were granted for the properties, would they be operated in conformance with the DDAP license?
They will.
How about federal, state, and local laws?
Yes.
Will they remain in form and appearance as a single-family residence?
Yes, they will.
Would it be limited to 6 residents for 55 East 24th Street
Yes.
and 11 for 59 East 24th Street?
Yes.
Because the driving of the residents is limited, if at all, will there be any additional traffic in or about the neighborhood?
There is not.
Will there be any other additional improvements constructed on either of the properties?
Not at this time.
In your estimation, will the reasonable accommodations create any danger or hazards to public safety?
It does not.
Do the residents have the opportunity to interact with the community?
Yes.
And have they done so?
I believe so, yes.
How about helping care for neighbors' properties?
Yeah, so everybody in our program has to volunteer with us when we do our previous outreach events, community cleanups. They volunteer in our food outreach. They've helped mow people's grass. As a matter of fact, before we owned 59, we were the people that cut that grass for years because the families weren't able to do it. So it's part of the program for people to do some type of community service back. And the value of a life restored, we can't diminish. What happens when someone's restored and they go back in the community and become help to everybody.
Would the reasonable accommodation impact any natural features of the property or any or the community of the city of Chester?
No.
And I think you testified to this before. Does Pennsylvania follow the Fair Housing Act amendments with respect to disabilities of your residents?
Yes, they do.
And you've provided a summary of Pennsylvania's disability rights under Exhibit. Can't read it, it's getting dark. Exhibit 5, and that's it in each set of exhibits?
Yes, it's in here for everybody to read. It's in the first packet, 59, and it's in the second packet.
And you've also provided a Fair Housing Act summary and the case of Remed Recovery Care Centers versus the Township of Willistown in Exhibit 6 of for each of the properties, each of the cases.
Yes, that's in that one. Yes.
And the Exhibit 7 in each of the cases, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, is a December 4th, 2023 letter from Pennsylvania Representative Carol Kazim in support of greenhouse recovery to provide these services.
Yes, we did.
And you provided that letter?
Yes, we
And
did.
you received that letter directly from Representative Kazim?
We have.
I don't think I have anything further at this point for Mr. Clifford.
I have one more question. Who comes out and measures the footage per room to make sure each resident have the proper footage? I said, who comes out and measure the footage of the room to make sure
Yeah.
each resident have the proper footage?
When we
living
submit,
space.
it's a good question because when we submitted our the initial application to DDAP, you actually have to get the dimensions of every room in the entire house. So we have to have an architect or someone that's skilled in this to be able to draw up schemes to show bathrooms, windows, egress, and bedroom size. And then those get submitted. Then there's an initial inspection where they come out and they go through and they measure the distances for emergency exits, they measure the bedrooms beside that, and then each individual year they come out and do another inspection to make sure you're upholding everything else, where they go through the same process again.
So in the beginning, the license said they granted you 11, and you chose to do 10.
Correct.
Now you're asking us to give you back the 11.
Yes, I just want to be honest, we took one bedroom out of the room, but we are going to operate it as it's licensed.
And just to clarify, in your response to Mr. Nelson's question, when you said they come out and inspect the property, who is they?
Oh, DDAP, the Department of Drug and Alcohol. To make it even more complex, there's a separate inspection that happens from the county that they come out to make sure everything else is kosher as it was before. That's another site inspection that we've had.
Thank you.
Okay, I have some questions.
Yeah, let's do board questions first this time around, and then we'll go to the other parties.
Okay, I have some questions.
Yes.
I have a whole lot of questions.
All right.
How long do they usually stay there for?
The goal is 12 to 18 months. I don't think I could have a measure with you, an accurate measure right now, because everybody's in a different zone of life. Like we've had a guy who his dad passed away, so he had to move back with his family. You know, we've had people transfer to another program because they, wanted to be in a different situation. So I don't think I could accurately say how long, like, the typical stay is along the board, along someone's journey. We can say what someone commits to be with us is 12 to 18 months from the beginning. That's the initial thing. To have a year clean is so important to someone. They say year 0 to 1 is hard. It's actually year 1 to 2 that's the hardest, because then you have to repeat everything that you just did, but it gives the base foundation for that. So the number would actually vary, and I could get that to you at some point.
Okay. Another question, do you do background checks on who comes into there?
That's a really good question. So we do not take anybody on Megan's Law. Because of our association with the church and the after-school programs that we do not take anybody on Megan's Law. I live right behind the communities with my little kids. So we don't actually run anybody's record before they come in.
So you don't run their record?
We don't do a background check.
So how do you know who's on Megan's Law, who's not on Megan's Law?
I actually get a message sent to my phone every single day of who's on Megan Law and who's on not. We screen for that when they come in. We ask them, but I don't go back and run like a Pennsylvania background check on each individual.
So basically, at the end of the day, we really don't know if they're on Megan's Law. We don't back and forth.
Yeah, I know for a fact there's nobody in our program on Megan's Law, because I
Okay.
monitor that site every single day. They get like an auto email or something.
How many? What is the in and out times? Do the place?
Yeah.
What is the times?
Great question. So with people in Module 1 and 2, freshmen and sophomore, they have to be in by 11 p.m., and they're not supposed to leave before 6 a.m. in the morning. And we have everybody has to sign in and sign out where they go. And during that first phase, everybody has to produce proof of kind of where they're going. Are they going to a medical appointment? If they're not. And pretty much everybody has to be out of the house on work phase, job search, or volunteering between 9 and 3 during the work week, unless someone has a job. So 11 p.m. is the curfew. Once somebody gets to Module 3 or Module 4, once they've proven themselves well, in Module 3 they can stay out till 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday, but I don't think there's any reason to stay out till 1 a.m., but they can. And then they're eligible for an overnight pass, where they have to submit a request a week in advance, be open to a separate drug screen, give information where they're going that we would actually call and verify. So the curfew time is 1 o'clock on Friday and Saturday, 11 o'clock any other time. Except New Year's Eve, they have to be in by 8 p.m. for the obvious reasons.
Another question, the drug tests. Who administered the drug tests?
So I do. Me and
I'm sorry, and how often do you do the drug test?
It's random for each individual. We've kind of developed a system that we might get somebody twice a month. Sometimes it might be 6 or 7. And it depends on also someone's drug of choice. But once you're in this system so well, you spot it right away. So we have a really good system put in place where we catch people. Plus, we use a 24-panel drug screen. We can get everything with it. It even tests for alcohol and some of these over-the-counter medications that wouldn't come up on previous screens, such as the over-the-counter marijuana, all those things.
Okay. So you said 59, you bring in basically, if you look at, do the numbers, for $175 a week each person, you're at $7,700 a month. And you're saying that you will be still in the red after that? There?
Correct, yes.
And at 55, you're at 4,200, and you're still in the red.
Yes.
So, how far you were in the red?
I didn't bring those actual numbers with me today, but you know, we pulled out 2 line of credits on the 59 house alone that we're hoping to pay back through both of these properties. You know, one was for $100K to be able to do renovations and fix up these properties, and the other one was for another $25,000, and on top of paying the mortgage, the electric, all the utilities that are involved, including the camera system, and you know, we bought those on credit, so we're in the process of paying back all these things right now.
And you said that there's no on-site management there, so the house just run, the people that live there just basically run the house?
With oversight from me.
Oversight from you?
I'm the oversight, and so we have a resident assistant that lives in each house that becomes the leader for that house. And the Department of Drug and Alcohol developed the peer-led model for a reason, so it wasn't staff versus people. It was actually the community that actually manages the community. But I do a lot of personal oversight and checking up on things and see how they work well inside the property.
So where do the other 2 people, you said you have 2 other staff workers that works there. Where do they come in to fit in at?
So, I mean, most likely they're with us during the day or taking phone calls, working people in. One of them is my wife, who's an office manager, helping to do some of the paperwork. So they meet with the guys off-site at the church, you know, and or they're working from there during the day, office work that has to happen. So most of that stuff happens on-site. Now, when a new person comes in, we actually go to the house with them, and we'll search all of their belongings and get them all checked in and do their paperwork. But most of the stuff happens, most of the like intake and stuff happens off-site of the property.
And you said there's no treatment there at all. There's no treatment there at all?
No, we don't prescribe people medication.
So they're just being housed there with no treatment or nothing else?
Correct. Treatment would be defined as administering medications or giving counseling sessions for a specific, you know, whatever their illness is. So that type of treatment is not provided on site.
So is that an off-site thing that y'all send? They just housed there and y'all putting things in place for them to go to another facility to get the treatment, or what is it? Or they just or is they just staying there?
So we consider treatment that first time when they go into rehab. There are things called outpatient, intensive outpatient. They're all over the county. There's a bunch throughout Chester that, depending on an individual's plan, each person has the right to be able to self-identify what method of treatment, what method of recovery they want to follow. Are they going to NA meetings, AA meetings? Is their thing going to be church and getting into Bible studies? And according to that, we would hold them accountable to what they go to. So some residents do go out to like an American Treatment Network or an MVP for intensive outpatient, where they might see a group counselor 3 days a week. But their initial treatments, such as being diagnosed and coming off the substance, happens inside of a treatment facility. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so basically you're getting them after they come out of treatment.
Yeah, we're providing the family environment, and if you read the DDAP law that they wrote in, the primary thing that they found out with people with substance use disorders is a lack of a safe family environment to live in where they can grow and thrive. And that's why they switched over to this model called harm reduction, to reduce harm of people overdose and dying and destroying their lives and everybody else's life that comes along with it. From someone that has 17 years in sobriety, I've destroyed everybody else's life. Here they have an opportunity to actually live in a healthy community, learn to make good decisions. And that usually happens, you know, through ebb and flows. If anybody has kids, you know, one day they're this way, one day the next, but you still help them grow. We have a lot of great success stories as a result of that.
Okay.
Other board questions?
One more.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many people have graduated through your program?
So
What's the success
Yeah, so
rate?
I have 10, we have, I have to look at my computer, but last time I looked, 10 people graduated just in 2024. We're fairly new. Our licensing came out in 2023, and then one of them in 2024. So just for the natural year, January 1st to this year, we have had 10 people complete. And we're so proud of these guys. You know, it's a big feat, you know, overcoming your addiction, but to actually be able to face the challenges you've been through and then become a success in the community where you're actually paying child support, getting a job, taking care of your family, and facing life has been a really highlight for us. So we had 10 people.
How many felt the program?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but so we actually have in our rule structure, there's different types. We have 3 types of one discharge. One would be like administrative. So sometimes somebody might get injured and they need to go into like an inpatient medical facility. Well, we don't count that as them not completing the program, you know, so they wouldn't be like a failure. If you want to get the relapse numbers, I don't have that off the top of my head.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a really good question.
Anybody else?
All right, we'll move into party. Do you have, that was the end of the testimony at this point?
Well,
Yeah, I guess the one thing I just would like to clarify, based on Mr. Cottman's questions, was the fees that the residents pay. That's not the only source of income, though, for the program.
it is not.
And what are the other
Well,
sources?
we have private donors that we've contacted and foundations that support the work that we do so we can continue to help. We're a nonprofit. I'm not here to throw stones at anybody else, but there's other places that do this as a for-profit industry. I live inside the community, and we've done this because we absolutely believe we're helping people's lives transform, and we think we're doing it right by not making it a money-making scheme.
So we're going to open it up for questions from the other
Okay.
parties. I'm trying to project enough that I don't break it at the same time. So Ms. Wallace, do you have questions? You know, you have an opportunity later to make statements. Do you have any questions based on that testimony? Okay, please come forward. Just make sure you
Okay,
speak into the
I
microphone.
will.
Thank you.
John, you know I'm qualified as a drug and alcohol counselor. I showed you all my certifications, my degrees, and my diplomas. So I'm certified, but not once have I been offered a job in that facility. Secondly, I worked at Harwood House, and when we had clients who relapsed at night, you know, we couldn't just change a lock. We would have to call the Upper Darby Police Department to have these people removed properly because they become suicidal, they become violent, and things of that nature. As far as 11 people in the house directly across from me, John, that means that you're going to have scheduled fire drills throughout the night, unannounced. You know, they're repetitive smokers. They smoke all during the night. You can't have a smoking facility. You know, the clients have to have outdoor smoke. You can't say, okay, you can smoke, but after 11 o'clock. See, I had no idea that your goal was to have 11 people in that one particular house. Also, John, as far as Remed and their facility up there in Malvern, that was my last job. I was a brain injury specialist, Remed, so I know the format, giving medications, the counseling and professional counseling that's provided. But basically what you're saying here, these people are unattended during the night, if they come in drunk, okay, if there's not another person, peer, to report this behavior, they get to stay in there drunk throughout the night, roaming the neighborhoods. Also, John, I don't know how, but the boy, I come to your food bank. I don't have a lot, but I donated money twice. You accepted, and your buddy accepted twice, dime. But one of them, I gave a $20 for the young guy who OD'd down the street. I thought it was affiliated with you, but to come to find out, you accepted the money. I said, John, I don't know the family. I said, he's Caucasian, but that doesn't matter. Somebody lost a loved one. I would like to donate this money to that family. So people do die, and people have died. And not only that, John, in all honesty, like I said, you see my credentials. I showed it to you. You said, oh, Angela, we can use this, but no, your turnover. As far as, you can't have the success rate that you just sat here under oath and told these people because you just got the property. And the turnover has been, what I've seen is the guy Kevin, I like Kevin, but he goes to North Carolina to his family, comes back, they chain smokers. They chain smokers, addicts are, you know, and I don't understand how.
Excuse me. I just want to make sure that there's a question, because this time is for questions.
Okay.
You can save your comments for that portion of the hearing. I'm just going to also ask that everyone just make sure that your comments and questions are directly related to the issue at hand. Okay, so if you have a question, can we have that?
Yes. Well, that was my question. Like, what is he, that's why I was looking at him. What are you doing for the people who smoke at night?
Okay, all right,
So that's a question.
okay.
So can I answer one other question? Ange, when you
Go
told me
ahead,
you
I'm
had
listening.
you were a license, which your license has lapsed, did,
But my diploma from the
It's-
Villanova has
Well,
not.
I would prefer,
We offer that,
the board prefers,
Okay.
that all questions and answers be directly related to the issue at hand. Any other conversations that you guys want to
Yes.
have on your own,
So,
please do so afterwards.
there's no tobacco use allowed in the houses. They have to go outside to smoke, and the regulation that's developed from the county and DDAP says there's an isolated smoking area outside with a sign and a receptacle that they have to deposit those things into. They're allowed to go outside and smoke. They're not allowed to leave the property after 11 p.m.
Okay.
There is a smoking policy in place.
So I just want to clarify for our knowledge, there is a designated smoking space outside of the home, but
Correct.
after 11 o'clock, no one is allowed outside of the building.
They can go outside to smoke. They can go outside. They're not allowed to leave the premises.
Okay, okay. And that is in the rear of the home?
It's in the rear of the home. We actually write into our guidelines that nobody's allowed to make a ruckus or, but you know,
Okay.
things do happen.
That's what I was gonna ask, it's in the rear.
Okay, so my next question, John, would be, if someone comes in intoxicated, okay, and they're in there throughout the night all alone, how do you get notified other than what you're saying, as far as monitoring cameras and things?
I would just leave it on.
I'll just leave it on. So if someone comes in intoxicated, we catch them because everybody has to sign in, and our RA is there to be able to monitor people. So we would drug test the person, or, and I know it's tough thinking of a hypothetical situation, but we test and we monitor people, plus you know how people behave after being around them for some time.
Okay.
So we test people and then let them know they have to leave the facility, and then we'll help them get into another treatment facility. But we do not allow people to stay on our site under the influence of drugs and alcohol or.
And just for clarity, all of that is happening inside of the home?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, can I ask my next question? My next question, John, is because I live directly across from the property, directly across from it, I've never seen anything that you're saying happening. Number one, I have a camera system all over my house where I could show you, but as far as background checks for these guys that you house, you speak of a Megan law. However, Megan law, that's separate from being a predator, a sexual predator around children. And I have a niece who, they have different levels. And if the Megan law is in place, most time the city, the state, they're not up to keeping up with these people We have to call in all the time. Are they're not on the Megan law? Where did they move? Where did this? How do we know who's a sexual predator that's not Megan law? That's my question.
I don't have
Because
an answer
Megan
for
law is
that.
different than we're asking background checks and sexual rapists and things like that.
I have I have a question, just to clarify. So Megan's Law is the federal law that identifies sexual predators against children. Are you asking about something separate from that?
Yes, against adults.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
This is, Megan is children.
right.
Even though it's Megan, and I know, you have to follow through. We call all the time. Where did they move?
So, Ms. Wallace, is your question, understanding that Megan's Law is applicable to people who have committed sexual crimes against children, is there any background check
On the
against
other
people, or against people who may be, have a history of other sexually
Sexual-
violent offenses?
Yes.
We do not run people's background.
Well, I heard him say that,
Yeah.
so then.
We do monitor the Megan's Law website.
Yeah, Megan, yeah, but then, my question again is, like for the children, the turnover is so, it's constant. We never even get to get comfortable enough to say, hey, that's the neighbor. Because like he say, if the stay is 11 months to 18 months, this is not my statement, I'm asking the question, and you asked the question, who have successfully graduated? Not one that you could tell me. I got cameras everywhere and I could watch, John.
So is your question, how many people have successfully completed the program
Right,
since
because, yeah, okay.
Let me finish. Since
Uh-huh.
you've started operating the sober living facilities
I
in
only
these
have
locations?
statistics for all of 2024, and I have 10 people that have completed the program in 2024 alone.
And on average, those 10 people, how long have they been, were they residents of the facility?
Depending on,
Average.
I have to give an average 9 to 18 months.
Okay.
Sometimes people transfer us from, maybe another state licensed facility. So we do know we have 10 people that have completed all the requirements necessary for graduation.
Okay.
Okay, and also, John, I've been able to administer meds because that's my field. So these medications, we have lock boxes. Who's safeguarding the client's medications while they're in these homes?
This is actually a great question, because part of DDAP guidelines, they wrote in self-administering medications. Each person is given a lockbox where they have to lock up all their medications, over the counter or anything, and self-administer. It's written into Pennsylvania law, and it's written into our handbook. So we actually provide people, it's another cost, another expense that we have to provide, not only bedding and beds and dressers and all that, but we have to provide lock boxes to people with codes so they can, self-administer their own medications. And then we also have a policy, if you want to go into it, what do you do when someone leaves and they leave their medications behind? We have to, so there's policies we have written in place for that.
My credentials lapse because I let them lapse because I'm retired. But
Okay.
my education remains. But I know about medications and things like that. So what I'm asking you, is that nice, if somebody has like a seizure, who's to monitor that? Because does staff report hourly to that place to check on these 11 people that house there?
I think, okay, go ahead, you
No,
answer, go ahead and
please,
answer.
go ahead.
No.
I just want to make sure that if this is a repeat question
No, it's
from
not.
earlier? Okay.
No,
all
it's
right.
not.
Okay, just make
Well,
sure.
it's the same thing. First of all, everybody has a cell phone. If they're in trouble, they would call 911 and get help.
Just-
But we do have a resident assistant on site that helps with people along this. Most of it, it's a peer-led program that's written in the DDAP, so each person is actually responsible for their own issues. So if someone did have a medical issue, they would call 911 or scream out for somebody else to help them.
Okay.
Most people are paired up with other people in
And like you
rooms
said,
for
when I
that
worked at
reason.
Harwood House as a counselor,
Yeah.
what we would do, we had a sign in the sign-out book.
Yeah, we gotta
So
take-
that way, we know where they are.
Yep.
They come in at a certain time. They held accountable if they're late or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's where the problems come in, because most times they do relapse. Relapse is very strong, especially, and your whole thing is you can't just say you're drunk, here's a test, and you're discharged. That's not discharge. We as professionals, we have to provide some other type of support for that client.
Yes.
So what support did you supply at that time?
So we do. We have a Pennsylvania DDAP flyer, and we developed an internal manual of other resource programs. Pennsylvania has a number 611 that you can call to get people into treatment, and there's 2 24-hour hotlines in Chester that help place people into treatment. One of them is MVP. It's on the corner of 22nd and Providence. The other one's American Treatment Network on 15th Street. This is what we do. We would help somebody get into treatment right away. So there's a 24-hour hotline in PA. Anybody can call at any time, and they get you into treatment immediately.
And many times while working at this facility where I work, we had several people who committed suicide. You know, so it's so much involved in this. But from what you're saying, John, this is a question. You're in the negative with the 11 occupancy house and the 6 occupancy house. I understand it's your passion, but it doesn't seem like where is the benefit to you?
The benefit is to be able to help other people. When somebody works a step 12, the passion is to help other people coming through that. And I don't know how long we want to dwell on this, but there's other programs inside the city of Chester that charge $200 a week and more. We're not into that. We're into covering expenses because my passion is to help other people's lives
And I
transform.
believe that, John.
That's
So
what
my-
I get out of it.
My last question to you,
Excuse me,
John.
Can I get some order?
My
here?
last question to you, John. Who's defraying your pay? Because you have to be getting some type of pay. You and the staff, you say you have 6 paid staff. None are from the community.
No, not with Greenhouse Recovery.
Oh, that's something different than I don't know.
It's a separate organization.
Okay, I'm done with questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wallace.
Thank you.
Ms. Asbury, questions, please.
Hi, Ms. Jenny.
Oh, body doesn't work, okay. I'm passionate about this part. I bought my house over 30 years ago. All of a sudden, I'm surrounded.
Excuse me, can you bring it down some more?
Bring it down one? Okay.
So, Ms. Asbury, just since we stopped.
This is the question,
Okay.
I have questions, but I'm surrounded by all of these, at least 7 halfway houses that just appeared. So my question, where did you live before you came to 23rd Street?
I had a place in Brookhaven where I lived for 3 years, and before that, I lived at East 21st Street for about 10 years.
Okay, that's
And then
fine.
at City Team since 2007.
So how many homes have you established in the Chester area?
I'm sorry, do you mean personal homes or sober
No,
living
so-
homes?
Well, he stated group homes a few minutes ago.
I'm just asking which
So
one
I
you
don't
meant.
know, whatever kind of home he
Do you
said,
mean-
group home or
Hold on.
sober living home?
Let me ask you the question. So not how many homes Mr. Clifford has established for himself, how many sober living homes
Yes.
he's established in the city of Chester?
3.
Okay, so you only have the ones on 23rd Street then? Is that what you're saying?
At 24th Street. They're both on 24th Street.
There's none anywhere else sober living
There is.
for Greenhouse Project?
Greenhouse Recovery. Yes, there is. And there's one in Upland, too.
So you have more than 2?
Correct, yeah.
That was my
Oh,
question. How many
You
did
said in Chester, 3. We have 4 total.
Okay.
1 in Upland, 3 in Chester.
What made you establish these in that area, knowing full well there were already 3 on the block of 23rd Street?
So when we moved in and we launched the church Greenhouse Project and we started to do help in the community, one of the things we did was free counseling for the house that was next to us right next to where we live.
That would be Paramount Project,
Not my house, but I believe so.
but
Yes.
you are in partnership with Paramount
We are
Project.
not in partnership with Paramount.
Well, that's not what your interview was with the Daily Times. You told me
So,
personally.
Ms. Asbury, anything that's in the Daily Times is outside of this hearing.
Okay, didn't you tell me you were in partnership with Paramount, but you don't operate the same because you don't overcrowd and you don't have sexual deviance in your home? We had that conversation.
We did have a conversation, and this is what I said. When we initially came in and we started the church, we started to do free recovery coaching for the people in the recovery houses. Once we discovered what the system is and how the unlicensed systems operated and how they weren't people sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ, that's when we knew we had to take a step. But we started because somebody donated us a house in Upland that was already operating in this, and we established it as a discipleship house for the gospel of Jesus Christ, people growing and thriving. And we knew we had to do something different because the places that were unlicensed were actually doing a lot of damage to people by taking money, overcrowding, the Megan's Law, all that stuff. That's what I explained to you. And that's why we started the Licensed Recovery House, not only to help people, because this is my background of doing this for 17 years, but also to do it well so we're not causing harm to people, but actually helping to care for people. We're not a money-making scheme. We live where we're at and help people. So does that answer?
Well, you've answered it, but not as we talked. The house 55, which is directly next door to me, is that under Greenhouse Project or is it under your name?
It's in the packet. I don't know if you
I
know,
think
but
it's under your name?
we bought it, but we rent it to Greenhouse.
Okay, because
Recovery.
that's what it comes up on Google Map, is Greenhouse Project.
So
I showed you that,
we'll
right?
note that one property one application is under Mr. and Mrs. Clifford, and one application is under Greenhouse Recovery.
And 55 is supposed to be under your name, I thought.
It is.
Yes,
Because
that-
it comes up Greenhouse Property, Greenhouse Project.
I don't know about that.
Well, I showed it to you on my phone. When someone went to look up my address,
So-
it comes up Greenhouse. I showed that to
Yeah,
you.
that was from the church on the corner.
But the
So-
documents.
So hold
you
on,
said-
ma'am.
No?
I'm just going to say,
No.
whatever Google says is not an official record.
Okay.
The county records, the county records state that 59, I'm sorry,
It shouldn't be that way
55.
on Google.
55 is under John and Emily Clifford, and 59 is under Greenhouse Recovery.
Okay, I will make that statement later, a statement. Did you consider any concerns that the neighborhood or the city government would have about increasing the concentration of these facilities in this area?
Yeah, the concern is the more facilities we have, the more help that we get to have for people.
And what
It-
about
it-
the neighbors' homes that they have put money in, and their property value has gone down because of these projects? Have you considered that or taken that into consideration?
Yes, we have, and I have proof that our property values have gone up as a result of us being here.
And I
Our
showed you
property,
proof.
the church's property, I have assessments that said these properties have gone up. 59 has gone up. And then I researched that it's actually illegal for anybody to do a property assessment and lower it because of places with disabilities. That's actually a violation of,
Right.
of someone's.
I don't want to go down this road. The zoning board has no control over property assessments or property values. This is about use restrictions.
But we have,
Okay.
we've increased the property values.
I respect that you've done the research, and I respect the concern of the neighbors on that topic. It's just not germane to a zoning hearing board proceeding.
Okay, another thing that you said that you had one incident on 55. You actually brought this to my home to let me know. I had made a statement in council about the overdose, and you said, no, it was not an overdose. He had back spasms.
Or a heart.
No, you never said that.
Okay, I made a mistake.
Excuse me, sir.
All right, you said back spasms to us. This was a cardiac arrest. I told you, I heard them say they're going in with Narcan. I mean, be honest, and I'm going to be honest.
I have video with Sam across the street yelling, it's an overdose from my camera. It was not an overdose. Second of all, these are people with disabilities. If it says overdose on Delco Dispatch, it would say overdose. I have nothing to lie or nothing to hide, even if it was an overdose.
Okay.
We have to report those things to the state. There has been no overdoses at our place.
Have you considered also the different arguments and different things that are going at the house? You asked me to call you first if I had any situation. I'm not calling you. I don't even call 911. There has been situations, and I think you're well aware of it. I think you're well aware of the overdoses, and I think you're well aware of how many times the police have been called to the area. My next question is about, you did answer you were in charge of everything in that house, and that's what you have. But when it comes to individuals taking the lead with these people recovering, how much grace do you give them? Do you know for sure that they're giving you the information that they should be giving you?
That's actually a really good question. It's one of the things we wrote into our rules, saying everybody comes in, gets 100% trust in the bank. We're working off faith and trust like we do with any other relationship in the entire world. We can't say what someone's going to do or what they're not going to do on any given day. So it's until they're proven untrustworthy or making poor decisions, that's when we hold them accountable to those levels. And you know, we can only take an individual circumstance at a time and not make it a hypothetical. We have to, because each thing's so customized, as you know, for anybody that has kids, it's almost impossible to lump them together. But yes, we do have a high level of accountability.
Are you?
I have a question.
Okay.
I just want to be clear. What information are you asking about? You mentioned, how do they know they're getting the information? What information are you?
Well, actually, it was said that there's no situations, no police activity called. There's, you know, just a wonderful place. And I guess that's what he's being told. And me, as a homeowner living next door, I see things differently. Like, you think your cameras are picking up everything. I wake up, and it's a corner of that yard that you cannot see on your cameras, and it's not smoking cigarettes.
Thank you for letting me know. Ms. Joni, I agree with you. It's not all roses all the time. It's not. It is.
I don't have a complaint about that because these kids on my block,
We're
they
all-
walk up and down smoking it. But I'm saying this is not the rosy picture. No one in our neighborhood, and I do know that you don't take petitions, but no one in our neighborhood you have ever gone and tried to say what's going on, what you intend to do. As a matter of fact, you said to me, I can do whatever I want in my home. So that's the philosophy you have,
It's not the philosophy I have.
but that's what you said.
With people with disabilities, you don't need approval from anybody to have people with disabilities in a property. That would violate them.
What about the people like me that has a disability? My disability is I don't work. The money I made to own my home, to live in a happy environment,
Yeah.
and I don't anymore because of the fighting that's on the porch, because of what is being said when you have young men coming in working. I've heard comments about how one beats his baby's mom in the head with a pole. A young man said that, oh, this house looks just like where I was 302. I held them all at gunpoint. That's not a happy environment. And you're not checking these people. You just stated you're not checking these people. But me, little homeowner, has to be burdened with this. What are you doing about that?
We monitor things when they come up. We address them. We do. We address those things when they come up. I'm not saying I know everything at all times, but I do look at the cameras and I go back through the audio, and then we have reports from the house managers and we make decisions all the way. I can't be everywhere at all times. That's why it is defined by the state of Pennsylvania as a peer-led model. But I don't think we can say any harm has happened from our guys to the community.
John, I have to say I don't agree with that. I'm just overwhelmed at this point, and I mean no disrespect to any of you. I'm overwhelmed and I'm passionate about this, to learn that there's about 16 people living in a 2-house area, and behind me is 4 rehabs. I'm not safe, and I don't feel safe. But this is what should have been established before this came about.
I have a
But
question.
I will ask a question.
I do have a question. you mentioned that you were invited to reach out to the owner when there was any type of problems or concerns, but you don't reach out to him, and you also mentioned you don't contact the police?
I did not contact the police about the weeds that's smoked in the backyard because I don't contact the police about the weed that's smoking 5 doors away from me.
So is
I
that-
did not call him about, because when I have talked to him, he has knocked on my door, and anything I say, he's not receptive of it.
Okay.
He can give me 100 excuses. I did not call the police when they were fighting on the porch. I do not call the police when they're fighting in the backyard. Maybe I should.
So my question is, the use of marijuana and the fighting, are they problems that you want to indicate, or are they
They are
not?
problems because I don't feel safe anymore.
Okay, so I just want to find out, what is your method of alerting authority, whether it's the owner or the house manager or the police, about your concerns? I just want to find out what that process looks like.
Well, from what I understood, he was aware of some of the things that were going on. So I don't go around the corner to knock on the door to tell him. I was told he was well aware of the things that were going on. I
But
did
what
not
is-
call.
What is your process? When there's something that makes you feel unsafe?
Well, from now on, I will be calling the police. I didn't want to be that neighbor. I've already been labeled by his food distribution as the woman who's trying to stop you from getting food.
Okay.
That's why I try to,
Okay.
I don't want to be that neighbor that is always at their throat.
But in the past, there were no authorities alerted about your concerns, but now you feel comfortable enough to reach out to the police.
I will have to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Asbury. Ms. Asbury? Questions?
I'm aware.
Okay, I'm reiterating for everybody.
Thank you.
Just in case we've lost track of where we were in the process.
I got it. Thanks. I'll do my best. What is your institution company? What is it called?
Excuse me, Ms.
I
Mayor.
can hear you.
This is like cumbersome, guys.
Take it off.
You can take it off.
I don't want to. I don't want to
Okay.
break anything. Clearly,
If you
there's,
just, if you think,
I don't know. What is this called? What is the title that you're giving it?
This is Greenhouse Recovery. It's a
Greenhouse Recovery.
It's a Pennsylvania corporation,
Okay.
nonprofit corporation.
And the people that reside in the homes that you have, what are they called? Are they called consumers? Are they family members? What do you call them?
Residents, community
Residents.
members,
Residents. So they just pay a fee, they don't pay rent,
correct. Program.
a program fee, okay. Your occupants, can I ask, or are you asking?
Oh, yeah, no.
Are you asking your rep?
I'm
Okay. Your occupants, are they from the area, do you know?
Everybody that comes in is is a resident of Chester. I don't know their
Okay.
previous.
And they're
residents.
sent to you by the county?
No, individual treatment facilities reach out to us for placement, and then we have a screening process on if we accept someone or if we don't.
And you don't do
I'm
background?
sorry, if you accept someone or,
Or we do not.
Okay.
So we're screening people for.
I just couldn't hear what you said.
Yeah,
And you don't do background checks?
we do not.
So you don't know who is in your facility, technically? You don't know what they've done in the past? You don't
Correct.
know. Okay. Did you want to come up?
ladies, we.
So you don't know what they've done in the past, correct? I just want to make
Correct.
sure I'm clear.
Unless they
about
were on Megan's Law, we
Unless
monitor
it's
that
Megan's
website.
Law.
Correct, yes.
that. Okay, so you don't know if I'm saying he because you said earlier
It's
it's
men
men
only,
only.
yeah. Other than what they would have identified on their screening questionnaire.
Okay,
That's the information we have.
okay. So you don't know if this man may have, I don't know, choked a woman beater down in the ground, you don't know.
Do
You
not
don't know
know
if he
that.
robbed a bank, you don't know if he robbed someone at gunpoint, you don't know.
We do not know.
Okay, and you said that they're also required to do volunteerism,
Correct.
correct? Okay, and that's in the community?
It would have to be somewhere in the community.
Is it
Correct.
monitored?
No, it's not. It's a self-led program.
Okay. So-
If they volunteered, the only thing outside of that would be like, when I mentioned group activities, like if they were with us with our community cleanups or the food outreach, that's within a group setting.
So they're not with you with the children?
No, they're not. None of our guys are approved to work with our kids' programs. That's a special classification and clearance that happens, and that only happens inside and outside, but with our church vetted volunteers that have volunteer background checks and Pennsylvania State background check and child abuse clearance.
So you do make sure that all of your volunteers have that?
Correct. It's required by law to.
I know it is, but I don't know if you all, if you
Yeah.
require it.
Ms.
For-
Asbury, just let him finish.
For all of our volunteers in the church, which is a separate thing, anybody that volunteers with the church has to be vetted for Pennsylvania background check and child abuse clearance. We do require it in greenhouse recovery for the resident assistants because of the licensing. When they come back out, we have to do first aid, CPR, child abuse, background check, communicable diseases, Narcan training, and some of those things, but not for the residents. It's not required.
Okay. You mentioned just a second ago about more houses mean you're helping more people.
Correct.
Am I being helped?
By us, you're not in our programs.
So it's only people in your program that you are helping?
For greenhouse recovery itself, yes.
You're only helping people in your program?
Yes, the
Yes or
people
no?
that become, yes.
Okay. So did you think of the possible deterioration your homes and partnerships may have brought to this community?
I don't believe it has. I believe it's only added value.
Well, you have people here defending themselves, so obviously you have done some type of deterioration. Would you not agree?
I disagree.
Okay. Do you think that the operation of your facilities abide by the standards that align with communities' well-being?
Yes, 100%. They're run by the state, they're state licensed, county approved. We've had above and beyond in every area.
Okay. So why did Chester not know that you existed? If you were operating above board and you're doing all of these extra things, why did the city really not know that you existed?
I don't know.
Did you ask them? Did you tell them that you were coming? Did you? It seems like that seems to be a pattern.
Okay.
Is there an answer? Or?
No, I don't know why they don't know.
Oh, okay. That's odd. How many, can you say again how many homes you have operating in the city of Chester and nearby areas?
For recovery purposes,
Yes.
3,
4?
1 and up.
So 3 in Chester, 1 in Upland,
Correct.
total.
They're all state licensed, under greenhouse recovery.
Okay. And how far apart are they in distance?
I don't know off the top of my head.
You don't, do you own these places?
I don't own all of them,
And you're the CEO of?
no. Correct. The corporation, the nonprofit, does not have ownership.
Okay,
There's a board.
clearly.
Yeah.
Are you trying to erect some sort of compound? It seems like you have a lot of them in a small radius. This is a small city. Some people just consider it a town,
Not us.
not us what?
I don't consider it a town. I
But you
consider
would,
Chester
would
a
you
city.
agree that it's a small city?
Chester?
Would you agree that Chester is a small city?
I agree, yeah, less
You
than
would
5
agree.
square miles. correct.
Okay.
I agree
And
with
so
that.
you have 4 houses operating in such a small area. Would you think that is like an indonation?
I do not.
My objection for the record, this is not germane to the application of the property.
It is germane.
In respect to the operation of the organization, we'll note your objection on the record, but I would ask you to keep it relevant to the relief being requested for the 24th Street properties.
Okay. And you stated earlier that, excuse me. You stated earlier that people don't, your consumers, your residents, they don't receive medication at your home.
No, I said we do not administer
You don't
medication.
administer? Okay.
Correct, yes.
Okay, so what is it that you just provide shelter and lip service?
No, we don't provide lip service.
I mean,
Pens-
you talk, they
Pennsylvania.
come and talk? What do you provide
Well,
exactly?
Under Pennsylvania DDAP guidelines, we provide the sober
Could
living
you speak
house
up?
and
I'm
the.
sorry, it's like
I'm
a
sorry.
deafening back here, I can't
Sorry.
hear.
Pennsylvania, oh, wow, sorry, man.
It's
The whole
okay.
time I've been doing this.
It's okay, we're okay.
Pennsylvania DDAP law that they put into effect provides the safe living, sober living home with the guidelines in effect. That's what we provide to the individuals.
Okay, so with you, it's DTAC?
DDAP, the Department of Drug and Alcohol Procedures.
Okay.
My apologies.
No, it's okay,
Well,
it gives you a little bit of a list, that's why I asked for clarification. DDAC,
DDAP.
okay. Why don't you have DDAP come in and give drug tests?
DDAP does not give drug tests
Why don't you hire a company to do it?
because we provide the drug testing for them. That's part of the regulations that we've put into place for our rules.
Did you put those regulations in?
No, DDEP has a set of guidelines that we have to adhere to.
And that's
Th-
not
th-
considered treatment at all?
It's not considered treatment according to DDEP and the recovery house and people with substance use disorders who are considered disabled. There are companies that do drug testing, but the cost is so expensive. Usually the places that use them are treatment facilities because they bill the insurance company for it, which is taxpayer funded. So
Okay.
we're actually saving taxpayer funds by doing it this way.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a pastor.
Strictly a pastor?
Yeah, I wear multiple hats.
What are they?
What are they?
What are your hats?
I couldn't list everything in what I do all day long.
Can we make sure that the questions are related to the application?
Well, it is directly related because my next question is who was the who and the we that he was referring to when he said that they had taken out loans. He kept saying who. So I wanted to know, who else is involved on the loans? It was a leading
Okay, can you
question.
answer that question?
Yeah, the corporation is the one responsible for the loans. So there's a board of directors that we have bylaws, and according to our bylaws, that's how those things operate.
Okay. And earlier, it was quite long, a lot of legal jargon, so some people may have missed it. I just wanted to clarify, when we were talking about the measurements, I don't know, I feel like it got a little messy because of the microphone. Did you mean to say 70 square foot a person or 70 square foot of shared space?
No, I can pull up the exact language if you want me to
I do.
off the website.
Yeah, I do, thank you.
Not now.
No, not right now.
I'm clear on
Just go ahead and answer
What
the
is-
question.
As
to the
as
best
far
of
as I
your-
understand, it's the square footage of the room defines how many beds are in the room.
Okay. And if your contract with your residents is 12 to 18 months, and you said you graduated approximately 10 people, and we're now in the 12th month of 2014, how was that,
2024.
2024, excuse me, how was that possible?
We started with our Upland House before this. It's the first one we started with in 2023. We actually started with that one in 2022. We got our license for the 59 house in 2023, and 55 house got its license here in 2024. So we've worked with people previously. We've also had a few transplants come from us from other state licensed recovery house that had a good amount of clean time when they came with us. So each person's on a different trajectory when they come in, so we have to make assessments based off the individual because it's an individual treatment. Recovery is about an individual.
Okay, and your residents, do they stay at that particular, like if you have a resident at 55, does that resident stay at 55 or do they go to 59?
We have the right to move a resident at any time for various different reasons.
What would be one?
We believe in people being able to share different community spaces and growing with people, different people with different backgrounds and different attitudes. We believe that helping people grow with that only edifies them. We want them to experience some type of diversity inside their house for what they're going to face when they leave this world. So we believe in moving people periodically. But there could be a various bunch of reasons why people get moved from different houses.
Okay. And when altercations occur, because like you said, it's all men, and just like all women,
Correct, it happens.
yeah, it did.
It did.
On the evening of November 24th, were you aware?
I don't,
This is monitored.
I don't know what you're referencing.
There was an incident that took place at 55 on November 24th. Were you aware?
I don't know what you're referencing right now. I'd have to look it up.
So you were not aware?
I might have been aware, I don't know at
Well,
this
you
moment.
only have 2 houses, so is it hard to?
I think
keep
what
track?
he's saying is that he's not clear on what incident happened. So, and for our information,
Should I elaborate?
please, can you just let us know some
There
details about the
was
event?
about a silver Monte Carlo, I believe the year, maybe 98, stopped in the middle of 24th Street. A black male got out. A black male was arguing with another black male, pushing, shoving, punching ensued with a lot of profanity. Were you aware that this happened on November 24th?
I'm not aware that that happened on November 24th.
Do you have cameras at work?
I do,
Do you monitor them?
I do.
How
Not
often?
24/7, when incidences come up.
So are your cameras like motion activated?
No, they're wired and they run 24/7
They
with
run
audio.
24/7, so do you ever just take a peruse and
I
just?
do.
Okay, so you have to be.
Ms. Asbury, do you have reason to believe that one of the people involved in the altercation was a resident of the?
Absolutely.
Okay, you didn't mention that. That's why I was trying to figure out why it was relevant. Are you aware of anybody in your house who had an altercation in the last month?
I am. There are people that have had situations.
Okay.
Were the police called after or as a result of this, or is any of the neighbors aware the police were called, as a result of this altercation?
I'm unaware.
Okay. Do any of the neighbors present, are any of you aware if anyone contacted the owner as a result of this altercation?
I'm just going to say, yes, police have been called multiple times. There's been gunshot, my car been shot up, police been called, there's been multiple break-ins.
I don't want to, I'm sorry. I don't want to go down this. Excuse me, Ms. Wallace. I don't want to go down this. We don't have any type of testimony or evidence that this is directly tied. I think it's prejudicial, and I don't think we should be exploring this as part of this hearing.
Can you
Yes.
elaborate on which part you're referring to?
We're having comments made about incidents in the street on 24th Street.
It happened on his porch.
Okay,
The car that the male was
that hasn't
driving
yet
was on
been
24th
said,
Street.
okay?
I just said
I
that.
think we need to be specific. What the testimony was that a car pulled in the middle of the street, one male got out, another male had a confrontation with him. There was no indication that it was related to the property. That's why we're going down this
Well, it
this
did
path.
happen on
I'm
his
sorry,
property.
I'm speaking.
Come on, Courtney,
We
what? I'm
need-
speaking too.
I'm going to we're going to maintain a proper hearing here. We've given a lot of leeway with the comments and the questions here. However, I need them to be germane both to the operation of the sober living house, and they need to be specifically tied. This is not an airing of grievances against the property owner. There is a legal standard here for the operation of the sober living house on these properties and whether that will be permitted by the board. So if we're cutting off a particular line of questioning, it has to do with the legal standards of this proceeding, and I need everyone to respect that.
So I got a question for you. Can you tell me what are we here for? Can you read it so we can stay on track here? Because I think, I think we all over the place. Can we just draw us in with a main paragraph, explain it so they understand the line of questioning? What are we here for? Because I believe we're here for if he's want to add another bed.
No.
We are here because the operation of a sober living facility there is a question under the zoning ordinance as to whether the sober living facility can operate at this location. The representations of the applicant are that there are provisions that are protected by the Fair Housing Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Recovery Act that permit the operation of a home for disabled individuals, which includes those with substance use disorders, to exceed the number of non-related residents that can reside on one property under the zoning ordinance. To exceed that threshold and operate in this location is what's called a reasonable accommodation under those acts. We are hearing evidence today as to whether the continued operation of these facilities at these locations is considered a reasonable accommodation under those acts. Now, there's been legal argument and there's been testimony. Part of this is the operation as to whether they are being operated in a manner that is conducive with the residential area, and that is why we've allowed testimony related to their operation beyond the practices and procedures of the facility itself. And so the complication we're having now is it operations, or is it, as I said, an airing of grievances? And I want to keep it focused on whether the existence of 6 and 11 persons living together in these houses on this block, as they may be entitled to do under those acts, is detrimental in comparison with the other single-family homes that are located in this area.
I was clear before I sat down. I'm glad. I just wanted you to read that so we all have, I want you to know these are the instructions that we were read, that we will consider. So I believe I have entertained enough grievance, and I understand this is passionate for everybody, but you have to understand it's passionate for me too. So if we can pull it back and get back to new side and get back to it, I'm all ears. You don't have.
I came under medical care after all this started happening in my neighborhood. Is it any way I can obtain a note saying I was here? I'm on my way to.
You're on the record, Ms.
Your
Wallace.
record, your record.
So where can I get a copy? I'm on my way now. I'm leaving. I've been to the hospital. Can somebody please give me the updated next appointment so I can be here? It's not that I don't.
Well, you're on record, so
You're on
we'll
record
make sure that you get
You
notice.
guys don't have my email address.
I do have your email address. I collected it at the last hearing.
I didn't give it to him because I'm not savvy with that. I'm old school. I have to remember December the 18th in my mind. But I'm
Ms. Wallace, I have your phone number. If 610-348-4693, I will contact you if there's another hearing.
Because I'm under extreme stress, and I feel like, in a sense, you're probably, I don't used to do it, an hour talk, and whatever, I feel like it's condescending, we're being penalized, and we talk down to, because we are disappointed. Thank you so much. Please let me have the update.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Sorry you feel that way.
And you want to finish your question, line of questions?
I would like to.
Okay.
Please,
You want to continue?
What's that?
You want to continue?
Yeah, I was waiting. So your reasonable accommodation is to have six in one home, which is 55, correct?
Yes,
And 11, not 10, even like, right?
correct, for 59, 11,
You're accommodating 59 back into 11?
yes.
So then what would happen to your fire escape?
The fire escape's still there. It's the hallway, it's the leading into it. There's actually not a problem. We can put a bed back in there at any time, but we have to move some stuff around. We haven't gotten to it yet. We plan to do it in the future.
So where is your exit for 55?
Can you use your microphone, ma'am? Can you use
Me?
your microphone? just so we
Where
can-
is your exit for 55?
There's 4 exits in the building. There's one at the front door, there's one at the back door, there's one at the basement door coming up the back, and then there's one in the middle bedroom. That's an emergency exit. There's a ladder fixed to inside the bedroom window that you lift the window up and you can throw the ladder out, and that's the means of egress of the second floor. So it's the middle bedroom.
So where the air conditioner?
No,
is?
there's 2. There's 2 windows in there, one with an air conditioner, one without.
So it's just like a throw out, like break the window, throw it out?
Correct. There's drilled-in brackets that have to happen. You take the ladder out, clip it to the top of the brackets that are drilled into the brick, and then you throw it out. That would be the means of egress for the second story.
Okay. And going back to my previous question, or comment, I guess, about you moving people around at your discretion,
Correct.
just to get them to be more comfortable, I guess, in the outside world. I don't want to use your words, but, I mean, I don't want to speak for you.
We have the discretion to move anybody at any time.
Okay, so if there was like an issue with the men, would you circulate them around?
It depends on the issue, but to your question, yes, it could be a possibility.
So hypothetical physical issue, would you circulate them around?
100%. But if there was a physical issue that we knew about, because we have 7 non-negotiables, the person would be exited right away if that's 2 people in our program.
Okay. We weren't really privy to your non-negotiables because you said it was proprietary information, so.
No, I mentioned the 7 non-negotiables, which would be.
I don't recall you going into, did you say 7, all 7?
There's 7, yes. Using or abusing or the sale of drugs, physical or verbal threats,
Oh, racism.
racism.
You don't have to go, you don't.
Thank you. My brain's fried, no offense. I'm sorry.
We do have record of the non-negotiables.
Okay.
So,
Stated
if you're.
7 earlier.
I'm sorry. Can I go?
My apologies.
No, it's okay. If you're at capacity, then how are you like moving them around? Is someone who's already like comfortable and settled in at 59, do they then have to move with some?
Use the
I'm
mic.
sorry. Do they then have to move to 55? Like, how does that work when you're at full capacity?
We're not full. The one runs at 70% right now.
But you're
And-
asking to be, I don't mean to cut you off, but I mean, that's your reasonable accommodation. That's the reason why we're here, right? Just wanted to make sure. So if you're
Correct.
at full capacity with your reasonable accommodation and you have 11,
Yes.
and then you have 6, if there is an issue, and now you have to circulate people around, how does that,
All we have to do is
How does
trade,
that do?
trade beds with people. Take someone in one house, move them over, and we would do that with our other facilities as well.
okay, thanks, I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Can I make one more comment? Not anybody needs to be heard. I'll give everybody my phone number if you have any questions or want to stop over. I'm open to answering anything.
Are there any further board questions for Mr. Clifford?
I have one, I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
Have the property been inspected by the city?
Yes.
They haven't been inspected by the city?
Correct.
On the yearly check?
Yes, so we got the occupancy for both houses through them. They're the ones that gave us a list of things we have to fix. And the 55 is registered as a rental property with the rental inspection that's good for 3 years. So every 3 years you'll do it. So I paid for the rental inspection and the rental application. So that's for the 55. 59, Greenhouse Recovery owns it and they operate it. So they don't need a rental application.
So the rental registration for 55 is complete?
Correct. And it has been last year. I actually just repaid the new one for 2025 today.
So the 59 don't have to be? Did you
No,
say-
because Greenhouse Recovery owns it, and they operate inside of it.
Okay,
Move to that.
okay. Okay.
Ms. Jackson? Anybody else on the board?
Same question? Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Do you have anything else to present, Mr. Kennett?
I don't have anything else to present. I just would just mention, in sort of circling back to your explanation, that the reasonable accommodation provisions of the zoning code are 1363. I have it on page 1 through 4, assuming that I printed it out the same. And I think it's
And I want to be clear, Mr. Pennant, your first contention is that the operation of the facility not need any approval from this board, correct?
It's not need, I'm sorry.
Not need any approval from this board, that you can operate by right. That's your first contention, and then the reasonable accommodation and the validity challenge are subsequent to that in the alternative?
Well, I think that the way that we have phrased it is that the ordinance is facially invalid because it doesn't provide for our use, which is a legitimate protected use. But to the extent that the board wanted to.
Not to interrupt, but isn't that the same as saying, isn't that just a different way of saying that it's a use that exists as a single-family dwelling?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Because we're talking about protected, protected persons recognized by federal law to be disabled. So we're saying that the use itself is not applied for, and therefore the ordinance lacks in that manner. So facially, and then we're saying as it's applied to our application, it's invalid because it's limited to 4 people, and for us to be recognized under federal law as a family and have to go through processes which a family would not have to go through for a protected class of people, it's also violative of our rights.
But is not the case law you provided stating that the definition of family that would create a single-family home includes the operation of your facility, but the cap of 4 people is the part that is not applicable to the operation of the facility?
What the testimony was and what I had said is as close, the violation notice that we got said that the recovery house, that we were operating the recovery house, and that was not defined in the zoning code, but it was the same as a treatment center. And we showed you that it's not a treatment center.
But was that clear?
We don't fall under the definition of a treatment center. As close to the definition as the ordinance provides to what we do is a group home, but they're not the same. They're not the same thing.
But with the rental application, was it clarified on the rental application that was secured? Was it identified and very clear about how how the building was going to be operated at that time?
I can't answer that question. I do not know.
Okay.
But I just want to be clear on the legal argument here, because you provide us with the Willistown case, and you also provided us with the City of Edmonds reference versus Oxford House, which is a Supreme Court case. Do those cases not say that whether it's a sober living facility, a group home, or other communal living arrangement of unrelated people, that the occupancy limit is not applicable to those uses when considering it as a family of unrelated individuals?
If I understood how you phrased that, I think that's right.
Okay. That's what I wanted to understand on the record.
Our point is simply, we don't fit in any of the definitions that are in there. I mean, we're close to a group home, and the biggest difference between us and a group home is that in a group home, depending on what the group disability is, the individuals, what that disability is, if it's physical disabilities, if it's mental disabilities, there are trained professionals required to be on site all the time to deal with that under your ordinance. And that's not a requirement of our use, our license, and it's not a part of what we do. So we don't really fit if you're going to go down all of those various characteristics as a checkbox.
Unless it's just a single-family home. If the sober living facility is considered a single-family home, none of those requirements apply, correct?
Well, that requirement would not apply.
Okay.
And if the board were to decide, well, we think you fit as a group home, then, obviously, you could make that determination, but we're pointing out to you that there are some of the criteria that are reported in the definition for a group home do not apply to how we operate.
Well, you're mentioning that one of the conditions of a group home is that there's a requirement that there's trained trained,
Trained professionals.
trained professionals.
On staff to deal with the particular disabilities of the folks in the group home.
But we're not, but in your definition, the RA who is trained is not considered a trained professional. Is that the distinction that you're attempting to make?
The way that the definition reads, and I can find it real quick, give me a second. Got it listed in a couple of different spots here.
She needs a break. Okay. Yes, we can take a 5-minute break very shortly. Okay.
I apologize, I lost my reference here.
Want to take a break now? Just let her, while you looking for it?
Yeah, let's take we're going to take a 5-minute break, a recess, and we're going to resume. Give Mr. Kynette the opportunity to look at what he's looking for and give others a moment for relief. We'll resume. Has Miss Wallace left again? I just wanted to make sure, if she was here, I'd give her the opportunity. Okay, so we've completed the applicant's case. You've rested, and we'll move your exhibits into evidence.
Yeah, I was just looking for the one.
Oh, I'm sorry, you were looking something up.
And if I was wearing a cap, I would tip it to Ms. Jackson. I think I misremembered the last word, probably just age. But when I had said that it was a staff person for the number and type of disabilities, it's actually staff member for the number and types of residents.
This is in the definition of group home, correct?
Yeah, it's in section 1347, in the parenthetical 22.
All right, thank you.
And are we, just so we're clear, is that how you're identifying this facility?
I'm sorry?
Or is that how you're going to be defining this facility as a group home?
Well, I guess that, that's up to the zoning hearing board. In our application, we did not see that we fit that definition, but if that's, if that's the determination that the zoning hearing board makes, that, your ordinance is not invalid because you are covered by group home, then that, that's a decision that the zoning hearing board could make.
Thank you.
All right, so, and so we're resting at this point? Okay. So at this point, we're going to allow the other parties to testify. So this is your opportunity to make your comments to the board. So we'll start with Ms. Asbury.
Excuse me, I have a statement. I have shades on, but they're medicated. So,
It's fine.
everybody think I'm ignoring them. I can't see without them.
Ms. Asbury, you want to go first? Yes. Okay. No worries. Make sure you use your microphone, please. Thank you. You're good.
I think you're good there.
I think they can. I don't want to
Yep.
break it.
Yep.
These are my concerns. And my concerns are basically because there's so many in a small area. If there were, it was 3 before John came. We complained about that. It was nothing, you know, they tried to keep it down low, so the city of Chester would not know about it. Not him. I'm not saying about him, I'm saying the prior houses.
She said before.
Thank you for the
Before.
clarification, Ms. Osprey.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. So now there's more. I'm only one homeowner, and I'm surrounded by 7. I'm uncomfortable. I feel the need to have my house surveillance all over. I haven't lived like that in 30 years. It's not fair to the residents that have tried to keep our neighborhood on the up and up. We tried to keep our property right. I worked for, I don't even want to say how long, to educate my children and to maintain my property. It wasn't easy. It was very hard. In the last 2 years, I've put over $100,000 in my house because I wanted to sit down and relax and enjoy it, like to be outside. Well, now I don't know who I'm meeting outside. I have 4, I think it's 4 behind me. They come from the back through your yard. Beside me is one house, and then at the corner. But these are the things I have concerns about. It's overwhelming to the local resources, the impact on property values, the quality of life and concerns, lack of regulatory oversight. I'm sorry, it's late, I'm hungry, so I'm shaking. Our neighborhood was never, ever thought about. They just came in and just took over. It's very frightening to find out that someone is living next door to you that you've heard talk about the violence that they have committed. Excuse me, that could be with anybody, but when you say now that there's 17 people within just shot of my house that have issues, I don't think that's fair to the neighbors that live there. And any concerns about that, they were never brought to our neighborhood, never thought about. They just come in and do what they want. It's just not fair to a homeowner. I'm a woman of a particular age. That means I'm over 50.
I thought you was 21, ma'am.
Well, I thank you, but I won't even say anything else. I want to live safely, and I want to live and enjoy what time that I have. I don't feel comfortable going out in my backyard. I just built a kitchen back there. Haven't even used it because we don't know. Like he said, people come in and out. You don't know when someone is going to do whatever they're going to do. It's, again, not fair. I have concerns about the resources that they're for our community. No, it's not all crystals and nicey-nicey. It's not. You have, I know we're not, you don't look at what petitions, you said that, but I have petitions, over 60 residents that signed it that are not happy about the, whatever you want to call them, halfway houses, group homes, or sober living. They didn't buy their property to live like that. When I bought my property, I did research. I knew that what was around because I was young and eager to be something in this world. I knew there wasn't development of different projects, different properties, but now it just seems like this is the beginning. I know they said they're not going to expand. Well, if that's true, why did the other ladies that were here last month, they've already been contacted by John, can I buy your house? So what are you doing? You're trying to expand. He knows he even asked how much did I get for my, how much did I want for my house? Because I said at first, I want to move. He said, let me buy your house. These things are not fair to us. I don't want to go out and start a new mortgage because they probably won't let me start a new mortgage. But just the peace, looking for peace. And to just, is the word dilute, or no, it's not, but to have so many sober living homes right in that vicinity, it's just not fair to the homeowners. And I just think that this should be considered. I know no one feels, I feel that everybody needs to have a chance. Everybody in here probably knows someone that's on drugs. I have family members. I want them to have a place to live, but I just don't think it's fair to put that many in one area. I realize, excuse me, the concerns of helping people. I want to help people, but I don't even go out now at night. I used to go to my church at nighttime for rehearsals and fixing the church. I don't do that anymore because what's coming from next door to me, I don't know when or what's going to happen. They sit out on people's steps and eat. They do whatever. But I don't know if they're angry with me. I don't know this. But it's really hard for me to feel safe. I'm very grateful that I have a daughter left at home that thought enough to put cameras all over the house and a security system. And I still don't feel safe because that's the first thing I said. I don't feel safe anymore.
Can I ask a question just for some clarity? You said that there are residents sitting on your step or other neighbors' stairs?
Two doors from me, they went to come out. She went to come out at night, and he was sitting there eating his dinner on her steps. But of course, she just went back in because we're females. We're old, women of a certain age. So we just go ahead and try to lessen this controversy, you know, and I guess I'm answering your question. I'm just a little, it was some other things that I had written down, but I think I put them all away. I just don't think it's fair. And to be told, I've asked him, it was a program going on, and I said, oh, what are you intending on to do with the house? He didn't know, but he knew what he was going to do with the house. That was 59. Then when it came to my neighbor who passed away, when he came and said he bought the house, what are your intentions? He wouldn't elaborate on it. But when I spoke on it, I was clarified as this, I'm not yelling at you, you're upset. Yes, I'm upset because I put a lot of hard-earned sweat. My husband used to work 16 hours a day at Amtrak to make sure my kids went to school and they all have been educated and have their master's degree. I worked and I took care of my kids. So we put a lot of hard sweat and time in it. We want to sit down now and enjoy things. I want to have our family. We have a huge family used to coming over. Nobody comes over anymore because they don't want to be involved in this kind of stuff. You should just have thought about the community, thought about your neighborhood. If you gave a doggone about the people, you would have mentioned something. You would have said something. But now it's just, oh, we do so much for the community. We are helping. We're making it bright. We used to, I put money in for 50, where he's at 59. We used to keep that grass cut. That wasn't my problem. It's my problem to keep my property cut. But we wanted to make sure our street was good. We have women older than me going out picking up trash, keeping the block clean. But now we don't do it because we're afraid. This is something that I think Chester should look at. I don't know about you guys, but to have so many sober living homes, you're creating an environment, and I hate to say it, but I look at it as this is, and I've done this research, how did Kensington Beach start? And I don't want to see my neighborhood to go down like that. My property value has gone down. I told them that. I went and had it done, and I think it's $20,000 less. I don't even can't sell it now because I'm losing money. I put so much money in. Now it's not worth anything. It's just not fair. And I'm sorry, but I'm shaky and I'm hungry, so I hope I said what I needed to say,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again,
So
you're 21 years old. I did. Don't tell your husband, don't tell your husband.
We're trying to get it 16 hours.
So-
Watch out 16 hours, he's doing that.
Ms. Asbury?
Mr. Kynette, do you have any questions for Ms. Asbury? Okay, thank you. Ms. Asbury, would you like to offer some testimony?
I'd like to add, I'm an educator. So when people are saying that they're doing a lot of things with the children, and then I look on their Instagram pages and they're making comments about the children's, I don't want to say mood, but their character. And I'm from Chester. I was not educated in Chester Public Schools. I was not, but I am from Chester. And they make comments like, oh, when we met these kids, they were so rough and tumble, and now that we've been working with them, they're so docile. I take that as an insult because their upbringing is a direct correlation of how much grit they're going to have and how far they can go. It is also a problem for me because I'm pretty sure we've all heard the term, I am my brother's keeper, I am my sister's keeper. These are my parents. Yes, I have a father, but I am their protection. When I have to worry about my family coming in at night, that's a problem for me. And solicitor, I may not have been super clear, but the incident happened on his porch. That gave me pause because my mother wasn't home. I don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, I'm from Chester, and I've lived in the same house for 30 years. Let's say 30 years.
I'm just trying to find out how you've been there for 30 years and your mom's 21 years old.
I don't know.
Well, anyway.
Crazy, right?
Okay.
Thank you. We're gonna stick with that. That gives me pause. I had to fit their home with every type of camera, and I'm still not done because I don't want to infringe on his property and his privacy. But when I hear things at 4 o'clock in the morning, people kicking over trash cans, throwing bikes in the backyard, the constant smoking, then men arguing, and I'm a female, so I'm left to protect myself. And you asked a question, Ms. Jackson, about calling the police. Like my mother said, you don't want to be known as the constant whistleblower. That's not, I'm not going to say it's unsafe, but it really doesn't feel good either. And I also constantly hear about things that are being said about my mother around the corner. So, and no, I don't feel comfortable, neither does she, speaking to the owner. Because the conversation that you're getting in this room is not what is on my camera when he's busting through my porch to speak to my parents to the point my father has to come running down the stairs to defend her. I wouldn't go to anyone's house and talk to them that way. So to answer your question, that is why it's kind of like, let me try to fight this in council. And I can be put on a record by saying, this is not a resident problem. This is a Chester problem. The ordinances are outdated. They're not up to date. The laws are not up to date. There's no reason why a city that is in receivership, trying to come out of the muck that whoever put it in, is now being inundated with group homes, with sober living, with any other type of rehabilitatory home. That doesn't make much sense. And it's also not leading to the fact that you want young, up-and-coming professionals to be here, because then I'll be next door to 11 men. I could be a single mother coming in with my child. You don't put yourself in those positions. And it seems to be that the city of Chester is putting its residents in that type of position. Unfortunately, we are the only 3 here, for whatever reason. But that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kynette, any questions? Board, any questions?
No.
All right. So at this time, is there anybody else present who would like to offer public comment? Seeing none, I believe the board wants to recess into executive session to deliberate. All right, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Good. All right, so we'll do these one at a time. The board has asked me to put forth a motion for consideration. The first one we'll put forth is for application number 6-24, application of John and Emily Clifford for 55 East 24th Street. So the proposed motion will be as follows. The zoning hearing board makes an interpretation that a sober living home qualifies as a group home under section 1347.02A22. The zoning hearing board will grant a special exception for 6 people to reside in said group home and that no reasonable accommodation is required. The board has determined that the validity challenge is moot based on the interpretation by the board of the use. The board will grant a variance from the parking requirements from section 1347.02A22K. And this approval will be also subject to the following conditions: that background checks are required for all residents, that the operator will ensure that the camera system that exists on the property is expanded to cover the entire property. And third, that the applicant must institute controls and provide evidence thereof to the zoning officer that ensure the quiet enjoyment of the neighborhood for the surrounding residents. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. A decision, written decision of the board will be issued on this application within 45 days of this evening. For application number 7-24, greenhouse recovery for 59 East 24th Street, the following motion is proposed. An interpretation that a sober living home qualifies as a group home under 1347.02A22. That a special exception and a reasonable accommodation is granted to permit 10 people to reside in the group home setting at 59 East 24th Street. That the validity challenge is moot based on the interpretation by the board of the use. That a variance from the parking requirements of 1347.02A22K is granted. And that the approval is subject to the following conditions: that background checks are required for all residents, that the existing camera system is expanded to cover the entire property, and that the applicant will institute controls and provide evidence thereof to the zoning officer that ensures the quiet enjoyment of the neighborhood for the surrounding residents. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. A written decision of the board will be issued within 45 days of this hearing. Is there any other business for the board?
No.
Seeing none, Chair, it would be appropriate to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.